Chapter 1058. The strange dragon came back with a few young dragons to settle the score with the extreme martial school's geniuses. It was actually besieged and beaten black and blue. This was simply a joke. Little ones, beat them hard and kill them with no regard for your lives. When the time comes, Master Dragon will take you far away from this dragon's lair and guarantee that you won't be enslaved by this group of bastards. Long you boosted the morale and rushed to the front to fight with the group of geniuses. Die! Puppy roared. Stupid boy, go to hell. Young world tyrant dragon fist. The strange dragon roared. He really wanted to take away a few geniuses and make them his servants. Bang bang bang. A group of people fought and used all kinds of combat skills. Blood splashed and the fight was quite intense. The extreme martial school's genius was anxious. One of his arms was almost torn off by the strange dragon. He was covered in blood and his hair was disheveled. He actually couldn't beat the strange dragon. He originally thought that because he was slightly older and the strongest among the group of geniuses, he could take the lead here. In the end, he was beaten dizzily by a strange dragon. Extreme martial millstone fist. Puppy roared and opened his mouth to spit out a beam of light. This was the energy in his body boiling and overflowing from his mouth and nose. In a split second, his fists turned golden, especially when he waved his fists. A pair of golden millstones appeared, rumbling and rotating here, crushing all things in all directions. Some lightning struck trees and rocks turned into powder and exploded after being touched. This kind of fist technique was very strong. The strange dragon's tail was accidentally crushed in. Dragon scales fell off and blood flowed out. It let out a strange cry and hurriedly swung its tail to break free. Bang! It swung its tail and whipped Puppy off the ground, breaking 2 of its bones. This dragon is strange. Its leather armor is too hard and can't be broken at all. Even a true dragon cub can't do that. We are already the strongest core disciples of this age in the young world. This is not normal. Inform the elders outside. The extreme martial school's genius shouted. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and was frightened. If this went on, they would all die here and none of them would survive. Bah, I'm so talented. There's nothing you can do if you're not convinced. Besides, you still want to get in touch with the outside world? Don't you know what kind of place this is? The heavenly dragon lair, isolated from the outside world? In addition, I have already used the heavenly light mirror to investigate. There are no heavenly venerables outside, only some servants. Go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will be able to save you. The strange dragon laughed wildly, looking like an old ruffian. His attitude was as wretched as it could get. The monstrous genius of the extreme martial school was furious. What kind of nonsense was that? The little crow's feathers also exploded, saying, "Damn dragon, you really are shameless, even screaming your lungs out. You grandson, you really are shameless and lowly, speaking as if it's something. I'll slaughter you." After a scuffle, 6 or 7 of Puppy's bones were broken, which was quite miserable. If it were not for his special millstone fist with amazing defensive power and the 2 golden millstones in front of him, he might have died. Even so, there was a terrible wound on his neck, and his throat was almost severed by the dragon claws. The evil dragon dares to act violently? We're here. Loud shouts came from afar, and a few more monstrous geniuses appeared, charging together with fierce eyes. A total of more than a dozen monstrous geniuses came in and finally dispersed. These few people walked together and observed in the dark for a period of time. They felt that if they did not help, everyone would die in the hands of this group of dragons, and now they had to join forces. For a moment, this place was plunged into a bloody battle. Even Longdew was howling. A few dragon scales were torn off, and his body was dripping with blood. He grinned and said, "A phoenix without its feathers is not as good as a chicken. I'm really unlucky today. By the way, where did my brother go? Why is he nowhere to be seen?" Kill. Slaughter this strange dragon. This dragon is really strange. Look at its forehead, there is a yin-yang diagram. It's too strange. Kill it. The dragon egg was smashed into pieces, and the strange dragon revealed its true body, which shocked many monstrous geniuses. For a moment, the battle here became more and more intense. All of this had nothing to do with Chu Feng. He had long run to the third small world and officially began his journey of nirvana. He used the most radical method to completely activate the remnant activity of the third calabash. He wanted to nourish himself in the shortest time possible and succeed in nirvana. This was because he felt that he didn't have enough time. It was better to obtain the opportunity as soon as possible. However, doing so would easily cause a violent tremor in his essence chi. Fortunately, he had the true dragon liquid in his hands. If he was really injured, he could drink a mouthful at any time to alleviate the danger. As time passed, the core of the third small world emitted a lustrous light. Following that, the heaven and earth essence boiled, and the remnant essence seeped out from the earth veins. In addition, the dragon chi essence that had accumulated in the dragon nest for many years was also gathered. At the same time, the runes naturally produced by the heaven calabash terrain all appeared. The core was in the shape of a calabash. Now it was like a purple-gold calabash had appeared. Its entire body was translucent and emitted a hazy glow. This so-called third calabash was very small compared to the heavenly pit in the tribe. It was only 1,000 feet wide, but it became more and more resplendent as purple light flowed. Later on, a strange scene occurred here. A purple-gold calabash trembled and flowed with multicolored light. There seemed to be a dazzling golden core contained within it. Without a doubt, Chu Feng was that golden core that was nurtured by the entire calabash terrain. What a pity! It was all squandered by that strange dragon to nourish its old body for rebirth. It didn't leave much active essence for me. Chu Feng sighed. Of course, this was also within his expectations. If there was still a large amount of opportunities here, that strange dragon wouldn't just leave. It would definitely continue to hibernate here. Finally, a day and a night later, some fine patterns appeared on Chu Feng's skin. They were caused by the natural runes within the purple-gold calabash. He was nourished and nurtured by the dragon nest. It was like a congenital rebirth experience in a mother's womb. It made his organs increasingly tough, sparkling, and powerful. At this moment, his bone marrow was imprinted with the purple-gold calabash's rune fragments. They emitted purple light and the cells all over his body continuously released hidden potentials. This wasn't an increase in realm, but his corporeal body and soul light had become stronger. Chu Feng felt that he could even fight and kill a carefree level evolver now. It was already very frightening for a child who wasn't even a year old to have this kind of strength. Even the strongest descendants nurtured by those ancient sects that had existed forever were no better than this. Now Chu Feng had finally caught up. He felt that even if he immediately killed his way out, he could deal a ruthless blow to the dog without worrying about being defeated. He was very satisfied as he looked at his little arms and legs. They were full of new strength and exuberant vitality. There was also considerable energy. This kind of improvement in constitution was very impressive. Of course, he was also a little regretful. The essence here was obtained by the strange dragon after all. Otherwise, he could have improved himself a step further. Another day and a night have passed. What's the situation outside? Let's go out and take a look. Chu Feng came out of seclusion. When he opened the exit of the third layer of the small world, he heard the strange dragon's angry roar. It was digging with a group of little dragons. Damn it! That bastard has blocked my escape route. There's not enough time. If by any chance that group of celestial lords with mixed hairs suddenly come in, I'm dead meat. The strange dragon was really scared and incomparably angry at the same time. Its old nest had been tampered with and it couldn't find the entrance for a while. Originally, It had already occupied the upper hand and was killing that group of little demons in an incomparably sorry state. It looked like it couldn't hold on any longer, but in the end it had to give up because there wasn't much time left. It had to leave. Upon seeing this, Chu Feng hurriedly slipped away from the other side of the pile of rocks. Otherwise, he would be blocked here by this strange dragon and it would fight him to the death. After a long time, he circled back. At this moment, Longdew had finally dug that passage. Longdew, what's wrong with you? Do you need my help? Chu Feng popped his head out from the pile of rocks. Motherf asterisk cur, you're the one who tampered with this, aren't you? The strange dragon flew into a rage after seeing him. It had a belly full of anger because it couldn't find the culprit behind this destruction. Chu Feng denied flatly and said, "What kind of damned place is this? I don't understand it at all." At first, the veins on the strange dragon's forehead were bulging. However, its expression also changed in an instant and revealed a hint of fear. It muttered to itself, "It seems an expert has really come in. He actually knows about domains. Sigh, I can't avoid it. If there's danger, I can only ride the corpse of my previous life and fight to the death. I'll be fine as long as I don't get targeted by reincarnation hunters." Chu Feng's heart trembled. He secretly rejoiced that he hadn't provoked this strange dragon. As expected, this fellow had a trump card and a backup plan. The strange dragon called out to the group of little dragons and rushed into the third layer of the small world. There was a large-scale transportation domain it had set up here that could reach the other side of the Yang realm. "Brother, what's your name? I haven't asked for your name yet. Why don't you go with me?" the strange dragon shouted before leaving. Chu Feng said, "My name is Jidade. I won't go with you. We'll meet again if fate allows it. Or you can come to this desolate land to find me. I'm sure my name will spread throughout this desolate land in a few years." "Alright, I'm you and you're Dade. It's really fate. We'll meet again in the future." The strange dragon ran away with a few young dragons. "Alright, we'll meet again if fate allows it. Brother, I'll help you block the pursuers," shouted Chu Feng. "Good brother, I'll give you a fortune in the future." Longdew disappeared without a trace. Chu Feng strolled around and appeared in the first layer of the small world. In the end, he found Goa, Little Crow, and the others. They were recovering from their injuries. All of them had almost died, and each of them was gravely injured. "Brothers, how are you?" asked Chu Feng. "Jidade?" The evildoer of the extreme martial school shouted angrily. Chu Feng laughed coldly and said, "What are you shouting for? Put your hands on your heads and squat there. You're all my captives. If you want to live, the men will warm the bed and the women will be slaves." I said it the other way around. Outside the dragon nest, some old fellows were discussing with smiles on their faces. "Speaking of which, it's been a few days. I don't know what's going on inside, but I think our clan's Chelan child should be fine. He can laugh proudly until the end. Oh, there's no need to say more. The extreme martial school's descendant is the strongest. Naturally, he'll be respected." Chapter 1059. In the third layer of the dragon's lair, the strange dragon dug up a secret area and revealed a divine magnetic platform. This was a super teleportation domain that could reach the other side of the Yang realm. Then, it wiped off its cold sweat and said, "That scared the dragon to death. We can finally be on our way." What exactly is that Jidade's background? He's not a good person at first glance. Fortunately, I suppressed him. Just wait and see this grandson. I'll definitely take care of you in the future. It had a lingering fear in its heart and looked extremely frightened. Its forehead was full of cold sweat that seeped out from its scales. It was extremely exaggerated. Why do I feel like he's a little like someone? How strange. It muttered. Then, it waved its claws and called out to the young dragons. "Let's go to the ultimate place of evolution with me. In the future, you and I will live together and look down on the primordial world. We'll fight our way out of the Yang realm and clash with the animals from other nodes and branches of evolution. In the end, it disappeared with a flash of light along with the young dragons. Then, the divine magnetic platform burned and turned into ashes, leaving nothing behind. Outside the dragon's lair, a group of people was still in heated discussion. The great martial heavenly venerable is really happy recently. First, he defeated his old enemy and illuminated Qingzhou with a cold sword light, displaying the might of a true great heavenly venerable. Now his descendant is shining so brightly and will dominate here. If there are no accidents, this child will inherit his legacy and become a new generation of Grand Empyreans before he becomes a third-step cultivator or before the Empyrean exalt declines. Oh, let's wait for the results. I think we can open the dragon's lair in 2 days. A group of old men was discussing. Obviously, the true heavenly venerables couldn't wait here for long. Currently, the ones waiting here were all their direct subordinate. In fact, if the experts outside knew what happened in the first layer of the dragon's lair, they would definitely tremble in pain. Chu Feng was now facing 8 evildoers alone. That was really like a hawk looking at a wolf and a hawk looking at a wolf. He didn't seem like a good person at all. He would beat and rob whoever he saw. These people had harvested from the dragon's nest. They had more or less picked some special fruit. Even if they couldn't use the catalyst to evolve, it was worth it to sell them to others or keep them for their own use in the future. It was to the extent where there were some who obtained precious artifacts, for example, a dragon horn. It wasn't the type that was damaged after transforming into the Tao. It was still sparkling and translucent, its entire body snow-white like jade. Of course, this was only a small section. It was a branch of a certain young dragon race's horn. It was as thick as an arm, winding and winding, taller than a person. Chu Feng unceremoniously took it for himself and muttered, "Not bad. This thing can be made into a wind and fire thunder rod or a heaven and earth staff. It's really a good material." The monster whose dragon horn was snatched away felt so distressed that his eyes turned red. He wanted to fight with his life on the line, but Chu Feng sent him flying with a single slap. "You still want to take it back? Bah! Once it's in my pocket, don't even think about taking it back. Who asked you to hunt me down with that bastard Go Wa? This is interest. You should consider it filial piety." Chu Feng looked down at him. This group of people had already been seriously injured. In the battle with the strange dragon, they were almost completely annihilated. They were hanging on by their last breath. Once they relaxed, they naturally understood their terrible condition. Their bones were broken, their tendons were torn, and their internal organs were ruptured. It was difficult for them to fight with Jikeda. Chu Feng not only robbed them, but also threatened them. "I'll give you a chance. Call me Big Brother. When I grow up in 18 years, I'll look for you. You can follow me to battle. In your dreams." That person said angrily. Chu Feng threatened him. "Let me tell you, if you don't lower your head and submit, and if you don't swear on your soul, I'll chop you to death." At this point, he kicked this person over and walked toward the monster of the extreme martial school. He decided to kill the chicken to warn the monkey, starting with him. "Go Wa, you've been hunting me down ever since we entered the dragon lair. You're too cruel. Did I dig up your ancestral grave or steal the coffin of the extreme martial school? Evil creature, you're courting death," the extreme martial school's descendant rebuked. "Go to hell." Chu Feng laughed coldly and pounced over. His snow-white fist erupted with light as he directly punched out. The first person he wanted to kill after entering the dragon lair was Go Wa. He didn't have the chance before because he wasn't strong enough to make a move. But after drinking the true dragon liquid and undergoing nirvana, he was qualified. "I'll kill you." Go Wa laughed coldly. Although his hair was disheveled and a few of his bones were broken, light shot out from his 7 apertures. He forced himself to use his potential to fight with Chu Feng. He opened his mouth and spat out a flying sword that was as green as jade. Then, it blossomed with dazzling green light and was about to chop off Chu Feng's head. It was very abrupt. Chu Feng tilted his head and dodged. Then, he waved his fists and displayed the small fish fist. In an instant, under the rustling of the rain, many small black fish swam in the void, bringing along a special cold aura. Shaoyin fist? Someone cried out, recognizing this fist technique. After seeing it, Gowa's gaze became even colder. He said, "I hate nether spirits the most. It's said that this is a secret manual passed down from the nether world. I hate this kind of aura." Chu Feng was furious. The extreme martial school hated nether spirits the most. Even his disciples were the same. They said that nether spirits should die and should be killed. Back then, in the small nether world, the people of the extreme martial school were so overbearing and cold-blooded. They massacred wantonly and didn't see the creatures of the nether world as human beings. Now, this little bastard was the same. He hated people and things related to the nether world since he was young. This was only a fist technique, and it was on par with the ancient Shaoyin fist, but it was also hated by him. "I hate your school the most. Why do you pretend to be powerful? Go to hell." Chu Feng used the Shaoyin fist to fight against the flying sword. For a moment, sparks flew everywhere. Several small black fish jumped in the void, constantly colliding with the green flying sword. This sword was very extraordinary. It was made of special green gold. It was found in the dragon's nest by a monster of the extreme martial school, and it was very suitable for him. Swish, swish, swish. There seemed to be green lightning in the void, crisscrossing and interweaving. That was the flying sword showing its power. It was chopping here at a very fast speed. Chu Feng didn't use the lightning fist, the Virokana fist, or the yin-yang divine light to avoid revealing his identity. He just activated the Shaoyin fist. As his fist moved, small black fish appeared in the void one after another. Each fish was sometimes as hard as iron, sometimes as soft as water, changing unpredictably. In the end, dozens of small black fish surrounded the flying sword, suppressed it, and snatched it. Extreme martial millstone fist, all the inheritances related to the nether world, go to hell. Puppy's long hair flew in the wind, and his eyes were fierce. In front of his fists, a golden millstone appeared, rotating slowly as if it wanted to obliterate everything. Its power was very amazing. "Your bones are broken, but you are brave. Lie down." Chu Feng sneered and attacked with all his strength. After 6 punches, the golden energy millstone collapsed, and a rich golden energy exploded here. Puppy screamed, bleeding from his eyes, nose, and mouth, and was thrown out. With a bang, he hit the thunderstruck wood. Many of his bones were broken, and his internal organs were torn. In fact, it wasn't easy for him to fight to this point, because the strange dragon almost killed him several times. If it were someone else, they would have died 6 or 7 times. He could survive under the strange dragon's hands because he exhausted all kinds of backup plans and vitality, and he even used up several kinds of great medicine obtained in the dragon's nest. And now he encountered Chu Feng. How could he resist? Bang! Next, Chu Feng stomped down ruthlessly, making the extreme martial school's monster glare angrily, his eyes incomparably resentful. He felt that all the bones and tendons in his body were broken, and he was crippled. The precious body that he had refined since childhood was now broken, like a balloon being poked with a hole, and the energy poured out. At the same time, his soul light dimmed, and a large part of it was shaved off. "You dare to cripple me," he shouted. It was worse than death, and he might as well kill him. Why not? After entering the dragon's nest, it's a fight between dragons and tigers, and life and death don't matter. Chu Feng hesitated a little, but he didn't kill him in the end. He was afraid that Dong Qing and the Divine Temple Fairy wouldn't have a good ending. After all, the extreme martial school was very powerful, and crippling this dog was more or less enough. If he himself grew up and encountered the extreme martial schools people, he would definitely kill them without mercy. Chu Feng took the green flying sword into his hand. It was only half a foot long, and it was rather elegant and glossy, but it was very sharp. He looked down at the group of monsters and said, "Call me brother quickly, or else you'll learn from this dog's mistakes." After that, he fixed his eyes on the little crow. The big white fat boy saw Chu Feng strolling over, and his hair immediately stood on end. Then, he didn't need Chu Feng to threaten him, and he immediately became terrified and shouted loudly, "Brother, you must be my long-lost blood brother. My mother said that I have an elder brother who was lost in the world of mortals, and we hit it off as soon as we met. I have a feeling that you're my blood brother. Otherwise, why would I say it's fate? We got to know each other outside the dragon's nest, and I feel like I'm seeing another me when I see you. Our temperaments are very similar, and we're both good people, blood brother." His face was full of smiles, and he had a very shameful appearance. Chu Feng glanced at him and said, "What's with your eyes? You look like a bastard that's rotten to the point of oozing pus. How can your temperament be similar to mine? Just call me Big Brother, don't call me Big Brother, it's disgusting. How about this, you make an oath to follow me into battle in the future." "Okay, I swear." The little crow was very cooperative, and his smile was like a dog's tail flower. Although it was brilliant, it made people feel disgusted. The others were disgusted, but this spineless coward actually surrendered and compromised. However, the others also lowered their heads in shame, because they also gave in, and called Chu Feng Big Brother one after another. There was a saying, "A wise man doesn't fight when the odds are against him." Chu Feng looked at the girl Ying and said, "Look at you, a girl walking together with a group of bad people. What a scandal. Luckily you met me, and I saved you at the first moment." The others were speechless. "Who was a bad person? You were the worst, okay?" Ying was angry, but she didn't say anything. For the sake of her ninth master, Chu Feng definitely couldn't beat her. After all, he still counted on her grandfather to provide rare materials, so that Chu Feng could refine 3 caddies and 8 tails of pills for him. Both sides had to benefit each other. "You guys really have a lot of good things on you." Chu Feng was pleasantly surprised. He found a broken armor from the body of another little evildoer, which was refined from dragon scales. Originally, dragon scales were very big, and one piece was taller than their height. However, after this armor was refined, the scales looked to be no more than an inch long, and they were very fine. It was a pity that the little evildoer found it in the depths of the dragon's cave. "It's mine." Chu Feng accepted it without hesitation, and added, "Who told you to hunt me down with Goa?" In the end, Chu Feng looted them all. He discovered that there was one less descendant of Linoi, who should still be undergoing nirvana. In addition, there were also the twin sisters that he had met on the path of reincarnation. The others had either died in the dragon's lair or were captured by him. "And you guys help me pick the herbs, and I'll give you half later." Chu Feng called over the group of seriously injured people, telling them to pick the dragon blood fruit and other things. 2 days later, the dragon's lair opened. The group of old fellows were all smiling, ready to receive their own evildoer descendants. As soon as they opened the dragon's lair, they heard a loud noise from inside. The voices were very uniform, and a group of little evildoers were calling him Big Brother. Interesting, an absolute expert actually emerged from the competition. He should be the descendant of the extreme martial school. Not simple. It doesn't matter. Just because he won this time doesn't mean he'll be the strongest in the future. After all, some people are a bit older. Oh, if I remember correctly, there's the youngest child here. His name is Jidade, and he's probably beaten up badly. The descendant of the extreme martial school doesn't like him. Someone said with a smile. In reality, he really wanted to say that the child was probably already dead. Chapter 1060. Dong Qing furrowed her brows. Saying that Dade would be miserable in front of her and hinting that he was most likely dead, naturally caused her expression to turn ugly. Even though the young mistress she was protecting had said that life and death were decreed by fate, and that it was normal if he couldn't survive, she still didn't feel good about it and didn't want to see Chu Feng die. After all, this was the child she had personally taken care of. Even if it was only 2 or 3 months, she had some feelings for him. Of course, she knew that this wasn't right. For this inheritance of theirs, they had to choose powerful individuals, the protectors of the future inheritors. They themselves had to be tough. This was something that the young miss and her mother-in-law had emphasized over and over again. Dong Qing could only sigh as she was powerless to change anything. Dao brother, congratulations. The extreme martial heavenly deity has a successor. Someone walked up to congratulate the extreme martial lineage's expert. Those were the 3 old divine kings. They personally came here. This time, almost none of the Empyreans came. They had already swept away the obstacles here and captured the old dragon at the Empyrean realm. They would not appear again. The old divine king of the extreme martial lineage was full of smiles as he said, "Hee, congratulations to you too. My clan's inheritor is on good terms with your juniors." Before entering the dragon's nest, they said that they wanted to work together. They must have also benefited greatly. Gua! A crow flew over. This was the Empyrean's mount, and it was in charge of receiving the big white chubby youngster. It spoke in human language. "I wonder how the little master is doing." He once said that he wanted to befriend a few good brothers and fight shoulder to shoulder in the future. On the side, there were a few people who curled their lip. That little crow had clearly spoken arrogantly before, saying that he was going to subdue 1 or 2 underlings and make them follow him. Now, he actually beautified it like this. "Let's go and see what's going on." Someone laughed. The dragon nest was extremely special, able to isolate itself from the outside world. This was a place that seized the natural luck of heaven and earth. If one didn't walk inside right now, all types of restrictions activated, it would be extremely difficult to see through the situation inside. The cave was extremely spacious, covered in lightning-struck wood. It carried a pitch-black luster and was full of yang energy. This type of wood was considered an extremely rare medicinal primer in the outside world, but here it was everywhere. "Everyone, please come in. Please!" A young god king of the grand martial lineage was rather reserved. After hesitating slightly, he walked in without any politeness. He smiled. This is... How dare you? What are you doing?" Ever since they walked into the depths of the dragon cave, everyone present sensed the situation, and their expressions became extremely interesting. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, they rushed to their destination and arrived at the scene, all of them excited. The divine kings of the Taiwu lineage found it the most difficult to control themselves. Their fingers trembled slightly. Caw! Empyrean crow's mount opened its mouth and cried out, staring ahead in shock. What happened to the monstrous geniuses of the extreme martial school? Upon closer inspection, he was lying on a bluestone, dispirited and lethargic. Not to mention the injuries on his body, even his face was swollen and bruised. Especially when he was being sat on by someone else. Didn't they say that he was going to be the king here? In the end, he became a human steed. Dade. The eyes of the 3 god kings of the Taiwu lineage were cold. They had never thought that their successor would end up in such a miserable state, sitting on a rock and being used as a cushion. Then, the crow couldn't stay calm either. It opened its beak wide and looked ahead, because the little crow was massaging Dade's back, looking like a lackey. The group of people couldn't accept this result. It was this youngest child who dominated and looked down on the group. These little monsters were all very obedient, at least on the surface. They were all injured and suppressed here. "How could it be you?" The old god king of the Taiwu lineage angrily rebuked. Seeing his own successor in such a miserable state and that Dade sitting on top, his killing intent was revealed. "What do you want to do?" Not only did Dong Qing stand out, but the silver-haired granny also came, blocking his path and glaring at him. "You're going too far. How can you be like this?" The young god king of the Taiwu lineage shouted. He raised his hand and 5-colored divine light flickered. He wanted nothing more than to kill Chu Feng. Dong Qing went forward and said, "What a joke. After coming in, life and death are no longer counted and everything is up to the heavens. Your lineage's successor didn't die, so you should be content and not angry. Do you want to kill someone?" Chu Feng jumped off the bluestone and spoke at the right time. Everyone misunderstood. "I'm afraid he'll commit suicide and then personally suppress me. You can ask them if you don't believe me." He pointed at the little crow, Ying, and the others, indicating that they could ask as much as they wanted. These people were slightly embarrassed, but they had no choice but to nod. "What's going on?" The Taiwu lineage's divine king angrily rebuked. "I've been crippled by him." The dog's eyes were full of resentment. She wanted nothing more than to kill Chu Feng immediately. "You're so cruel." The Taiwu lineage's old divine king's face darkened and was about to flare up on the spot. Chu Feng said, "Why don't you ask him? He's been chasing after me ever since I entered the dragon lair, and I'm only defending passively. It's already good enough that I left him alive." The Taiwu lineage's people's faces were ashen. They couldn't hold on any longer. Boom! One of the Taiwu lineage's 3 great divine kings stirred up a dazzling light beam from runes, but it was instantly suppressed by the old granny beside Dong Qing. This place became calm and tranquil. "Caw. Little master, how are you?" the crow asked the little crow. "I'm okay." The little crow revealed an ugly expression. Then, without hesitation, he broke away from Chu Feng and walked over to the crow's side. Only now did the group of people come back to their senses. The wind was in a mess. The child who was considered to be the youngest had actually won. He had defeated all his opponents and had come out on top. Meanwhile, the most popular inheritor of the extreme martial school was in such a miserable state. Chu Feng said, "A few geniuses died. Hurry up and look for them. In any case, it has nothing to do with me. If they weren't killed by the dragon, then they were killed by the successor of the Taiwu Heavenly Lord." What? Although they were already mentally prepared, there were still a few people present whose expressions changed. They quickly rushed into the depths of the dragon lair, but in the end, they only found a few corpses. One of the middle-aged beauties was extremely worried, and even had a terrified expression. But in the end, when she found a pair of smiling twin sisters, she was completely relieved. She believed from the bottom of her heart that these 2 sisters were stronger than everyone else and would not have any problems. But just now she was still shocked. When the Yi family's people brought the girl who resembled Linoy out of the dragon horn shack, the Yi family members also heaved a sigh of relief. There were also a few people who were angry and heartbroken because they had lost their sect's top descendant. Although there were a few little monsters in their sect, only one had been brought here today. But they were still unwilling to die here, and they were also very angry. "It was all the dragon's doing, it has nothing to do with us." At this time, the little crow had no choice but to quickly explain. Although there was competition among all parties, now that they had seen the tragic death of their clan's core disciple, no one's expression was good. If this anger was ignited, then it would be a bloody battle to the death. "Forget it, let's go," someone roared. When he said go, he didn't mean to leave, but to enter the depths of the dragon lair and divide up the various remaining fortunes and treasures. There were naturally many opportunities in such a vast dragon lair. "Are you all going to leave just like that?" Chu Feng asked. "What else do you want?" Dong Qing smacked his forehead with a dong sound. This time, it was truly an unexpected surprise. She had never thought that this brat would be able to suppress all the other freaks and ultimately emerge victorious. "Don't knock your head." The silver-haired granny stopped him. She was very doting, and the way she looked at Chu Feng was completely different from before. The results of today's battle gave her a great surprise. "What else did you think? Did you want us to fight?" Dong Qing knocked him again. Chu Feng mumbled, "I was worried for nothing. I even deliberately spared Goa's life, lest you guys can't clean up the mess and fight to the death with others." Not long after, when the dragon lair was divided up by all parties, everyone came over. This time, they couldn't help but stare at Chu Feng again and again. "I'll be embarrassed if you guys look at me like this." Chu Feng blinked his pure big eyes and pretended to be embarrassed. "Go to hell." The group of little monsters all curled their lip. With their elders in front of them, they were considered fearless. They had all been seriously injured before, so they had no choice but to lower their heads. Sigh, 20 years later, this will definitely be a disaster. Someone sighed. Chu Feng corrected and said, "Who said that? I'll make my debut in 13 years, but I definitely won't be a disaster. When the time comes, I'll work together with a group of brothers to achieve great things." As he spoke, he nodded at the group of monsters and greeted them one by one. This group of monsters was sick of seeing him. They really didn't want to see him being suppressed in the dragon's lair, but now they were too embarrassed to tell their elders. It was too embarrassing. Moreover, they had already sworn an oath. If this bastard came looking for them in the future, would they really fulfill their promise? They were too conflicted. However, they also believed that the clan should have a secret technique to break the curse of Oz, so the problem wasn't too big. "Everyone, before we leave, I have a piece of news. That person in Yongzhou has awakened and is actually still alive. He wants to unify the world of the living." At this time, an old man spoke, bringing such shocking news to everyone. "What's going on?" someone asked in surprise. "It's in Yongzhou. What do you think is going on? That person back then, he killed celestial venerables and slayed famous characters that shook the ages. He unified 1/20th of the territory of the living. In the end, after a great tribulation, everyone thought he died at the last moment, but now, he has awakened again." "What? It's him?" He actually appeared again. The group of people were stunned. Their expressions completely changed, and the atmosphere became incomparably heavy. They knew that something big was going to happen. Everyone felt that there was a monstrous blood energy rising from Yongzhou. It was as if it was pressing over in an instant, wanting to crush everything in the world. It was unstoppable. Was this a type of psychological effect? Many people were shocked and somewhat suspicious, but the more they sensed and deduced in that direction, the more they trembled and felt a wave of fear. The world of the living was going to change. Many people had a premonition that this was the short and dull moment before the storm. In the end, a terrifying event would erupt. Chapter 1061. Chu Feng and the others returned to the outskirts of the Ji clan's tribe in a hurry. In fact, everyone felt uneasy after hearing the news, and all of them left with grave expressions. That person from Yongzhou back then was too bizarre and terrifying. He was originally a 9-nether demon, but after comprehending the past, he swept through the world and killed anyone who stood in his way. He killed until the sun and moon lost their light and the world of the living trembled. Thinking back to this day, those who understood that era felt their scalps go numb. "Everyone from the Yi family, aren't you going to stay and rest for a while?" Chu Feng stood outside the tribe and looked at the nearby temporary imperial residence. A group of people were stepping onto the super teleportation domain, the divine magnetic platform. He shouted loudly from behind. He really wanted to communicate with them in private. Just who was that Linoy girl and where were her parents? On the magnetic platform, some people were quite friendly. They turned back with a smile and waved their hands lightly. Then, all of them disappeared in the rain of light and left the desolate border, Yu province. Dongqing shot a glance at Chu Feng and said, "Don't look anymore. There's something strange about that girl. She doesn't seem like a child at all. Her vitality is too vigorous." Chu Feng looked into the distance again and again, but all that was left outside the Ji tribe was the remains of a temporary imperial residence. Even the divine magnetic platform had automatically burned and turned into magma. Very soon, he calmed down and asked, "Sister Dongqing, just what is the background of that person from Yongzhou?" Dongqing had thick brows, big eyes, a wide nose, and a wide mouth. He said in a low, muffled voice, "His background is so great that it can overturn a piece of history. But let's not talk about him first. Let's talk about you. How did your constitution improve so much?" Chu Feng raised his chin and cleared his throat with a cough. Then, he put his hands behind his back and assumed a disdainful posture. "The pride of a generation should be like me." Dongqing was simple and decisive in dealing with his character. She used her large palm leaf fan hand to cut him and said, "Speak human language. There's a serious problem here. After drinking the true dragon elixir and sleeping in the dragon's nest, someone as talented as me almost ascended. At the last moment, I was greedy for the mortal world and couldn't bear to part with worldly affairs. I resisted the urge to ascend and stayed in the world of the living. Now my realm is neither high nor low." Seeing him so cocky, his little face flushed red and his smile like a coxcomb, Dongqing was annoyed and almost beat him up. However, at least he knew what he had been through. Knowing that his current physique was comparable to a carefree evolver, Dongqing was not happy. Instead, he furrowed his brows and said, "It's not good to break through so early. I didn't use any catalyst to evolve, so it shouldn't affect me, right?" Chu Feng did not understand. Furthermore, what he drank was true dragon liquid, which was the most nourishing. It should not be enough to exhaust his body and cause an early relapse. Dongqing was very solemn as he said, "Although the true dragon liquid is special and is known to be a heavenly nourishing item, there are still some great figures who suspect that it might lead to premature release and consume one's potential ahead of time." Immediately, Chu Feng could not smile anymore. Although Dongqing said this was only a kind of suspicion and not necessarily the truth, he was still particularly concerned. In this life, he wanted to rise up and kill Tai Wu, Hun Yi, Luan Yu, and the other great heavenly venerables. The early path must be solid and not have any flaws. Otherwise, how could he walk the path of the strongest? Dongqing said, "Of course, our lineage also believes that the true dragon liquid is not a big problem. Only a few great figures who are overly cautious will think so. Your problem lies in actually using the Dragon Cave's terrain to undergo nirvana again. You continuously broke through in such a short time and continuously improved your physique. This is worrying. Going too far is as bad as falling short. You jumped 3 levels in a few days, so how can you not worry about early release? How can I solve this kind of trouble and hidden danger?" Chu Feng frowned. He was not in the mood to be mischievous anymore. "You must not improve your physique in the near future. You must recuperate in the next few years and use supplements that can truly nourish your body to condition your body." Dongqing had a slightly worried expression on her face. After thinking for a while, she believed that Chu Feng had to recuperate. Moreover, to be safe, she had to find a type of substance. Is it that serious? Chu Feng was uncertain in his heart. At the same time, he was also a bit suspicious. Some conservative aristocratic families at the top of the pyramid would rather their disciples be mediocre before the age of 16 and be mortals. They don't care how strong they are at all. Only after the age of 17 or 18 will they begin to soar to the highest heavens. Dongqing said these words. Those were the evolutionary sects that had existed for hundreds of millions of years. They were abnormally conservative because they had experienced all kinds of great calamities in the history of evolution. Of course, the mainstream aristocratic families of the same era believed that these conservatives were too inflexible and did not need to have so many misgivings. Therefore, there were people like the little crow, Ying, and the others who had all kinds of good fortune substances used by their clansmen to improve their physiques. They did not break through their shackles and open their realms. There is a type of substance that can make up for the deficiency in your body, and that is the yang spring. Dong Qing mentioned a type of supplement that could be considered a top-notch precious substance in the yang realm. It was very difficult to find and could make up for the deficiency in one's body with excellent effects. However, this kind of thing was too hard to come by. Even clans with Empyreans overseeing things didn't have much in stock. They wouldn't let their disciples easily use it. There were even some orthodoxies that didn't even have a drop. Every drop of this substance surged with yang qi and was known as the yang realm's pure essence. It occasionally appears in the vicinity of the Yang River, but every time there is a trace of it, it will be snatched away by the people guarding there. It is very difficult to collect. The Yang River was an extremely ancient river in the Yang realm. It had existed in the world since ancient times, and its source was even more special. It flowed out from a stone mountain. However, from prehistoric times until now, there had never been anyone who could open up that stone mountain. Those who went to investigate were either dead or disappeared forever, never to appear again. The Yang River flowed through several provinces and didn't decline all year round. It was very hard to imagine how a river flowing out of a stone mountain could flow without stopping and emerge consistently. The great river's heat waves overflowed to the heavens and could melt stone and gold. Ordinary evolvers would vanish once they fell in and die. And in the Yang River, special splashes would occasionally appear. It was like a spring emerging from the ground, and it was accompanied by a sweet fragrance. There were also all kinds of miraculous scenes, as if a divine spring was gushing out of the river. After someone collected it, they discovered that this fragrant substance was a rare nourishing substance for living beings. It had a special effect, especially on early-onset geniuses. Is it very effective? Chu Feng had an astonished expression. This so-called Yang spring was very mysterious. How did it form? Dong Qing nodded and said, "It's very effective." Even the most conservative evolver families admit that this is one of the precious substances that can cure early onset. However, this thing was too difficult to find. Even the line of powerful divine temples fairies didn't have any in stock unless they crossed several provinces and guarded the vicinity of the Yang River. Moreover, it was unknown how many years they would have to wait before they could find a Yang spring. Chu Feng was speechless. Since they couldn't obtain it, wasn't it the same as saying it in vain? Dong Qing said, "There is a substitute. It's a different kind of Yang spring that grows near the Yin Manor." "You're talking about the Heaven's Pit?" Chu Feng widened his eyes in shock. "That's right. I've seen traces there before. I reckon that it only appears once or twice a year. Normally, it appears at the first glimmer of dawn. You can go there and guard it," Dong Qing explained. The Yin Manor of the 9 underworlds was bone-piercingly cold. Normal people would die without a doubt if they went there. However, when things reached an extreme, they would move in the opposite direction. "Is this substance exactly the same as the Yang spring?" Chu Feng asked. Dong Qing nodded and said, "It's almost the same, and the effect is even better. Some people call it Grandma Meng's soup." "What? Grandma Meng's soup?" Chu Feng was quite speechless after hearing this. How could it be this name? Even if he could find it, he didn't dare to drink it. Dong Qing nodded and said, "Yes, the soup is very sweet. Not only can it nourish the body, but it can also make people forget their worries. Of course, there is also a side effect, which is that it makes people easily forgetful." This was still a side effect? It was extremely serious, all right? If he had to forget the past, Chu Feng wouldn't drink it even if he was beaten to death. Dong Qing looked at him and said, It's not a big problem. I'll recover after sleeping for a few days. He had always heard of Grandma Meng's soup in the past, but it was only a folk legend. To think that it actually existed. Furthermore, it was a great tonic. This made Chu Feng really dumbfounded and very scared. Dong Qing sighed and said, "This thing, you have to find it yourself later. The young miss and I will be away for a long time. I have to find Grandma Meng's soup myself and drink it myself. Am I crazy?" Chu Feng mumbled. "Little Peng, you're back." At this moment, someone in the tribe shouted. He walked as if he was flying, and when he got close, he directly slapped Chu Feng's shoulder. "Uncle, who are you calling?" Chu Feng glared at him. "I'm calling you." The big man smiled honestly and said, "Didn't you have a name?" Brother Haishan and the elder thought about it together and finally thought of a good name for you. When Ji Hu, Fat Dumpling, and the others heard the news, they all ran to the village entrance and enthusiastically called him Little Peng. Chu Feng immediately exploded. This was really retribution. He was unhappy that it had landed on his head. Why was he given such an unlucky name? Even if he was beaten to death, he wouldn't accept it. "It sounds too bad, I don't accept it." "Nonsense, this name sounds so good. The great Pring hates the sky for being too low when it spreads its wings. Soaring for 90,000 miles. The group of people exclaimed. The simple and honest uncle explained enthusiastically and said, "Don't worry, your real name is Ji Dapeng, and your nickname is Little Peng." Chu Feng's cheeks twitched. With a dark light, he said, "My name is Ji Dade, and I already have a name. Whoever calls me Ji Dapeng, I'll fight him." "What Ji Dade? It sounds so bad." "How can it be as good as the word Peng? It has a profound meaning and a grand plan. You're still young and don't know what a Pring is. In the future, Uncle will bring you to dig out a nest of mountain eagles and explain it to you. Then you'll understand." Chu Feng. He couldn't go on like this anymore. He decisively ran away with Dong Qing to the back of the mountain and stayed in the divine temple, unwilling to leave. However, on that day Dong Qing said goodbye to him. She might be gone for 2 or 3 years to do dangerous things, and it would be difficult for her to return for a long time. "Sister Dong Qing, what will I do if you leave for so long?" Chu Feng was still a bit reluctant. He was grateful to Dong Qing, much more so than to the fairy of the divine temple and the old lady. He could see that although Dong Qing was boorish and often beat him up, she treated him well from the bottom of her heart. Something big has happened in the world of the living. Can't you feel it? That person from Yongzhou has come into being. It's really boundlessly terrifying. He's actually still alive. No one can imagine. Dong Qing sighed. How strong can he be? Chu Feng asked. His blood energy has already passed through the famed mountain where he hibernated and broke through the blue dome of heaven. Now, more than half of Yongzhou is dark red. The stronger the person, the deeper the feeling. When one gazes in that direction, they will feel a stabbing pain in their mind and tremble incessantly. It's indescribable. These were Dong Qing's words, and they made people's hair stand on end. Dong Qing sighed. And this person is more or less related to the missing patriarch of the young Miss bloodline. The young Miss has no choice but to go and make a trip. Of course, they couldn't approach him rashly. Instead, they had to understand everything about that person from Yongzhou and explore every bit of information about him. Then, they would find countermeasures and how to communicate without danger. That day, before Dong Qing left, she left behind enough rare minerals for Chu Feng to boil himself for 3 years without a problem. In the end, she thought about it and went to find the fairy of the divine temple. In the end, she returned and gave Chu Feng a small jade bottle. Inside was a medicinal pill the size of half a longan. She told Chu Feng that this was something she had asked for from the young miss. She used half a drop of blood of 6 paths of reincarnation and various rare materials to refine 12 precious pills. They were all priceless treasures. If news of this half a pill got out, it would definitely cause a storm of blood. Chu Feng's mood was complex. It wasn't like he hadn't seen the blood of 6 paths of reincarnation before and had used it to save his life, but it had all been wasted. He didn't expect it to be so astonishing. Half a drop was enough to change everything. At the same time, he was very moved. He could feel that Dong Qing had asked for this half a pill entirely because she was afraid something would happen to him. Sure enough, Dong Qing told him that even if he couldn't find Granny Meng's soup, with this half a pill in hand, he could grind it into a fine powder and slowly consume it. It could also last him 4 years. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 4 years had passed. However, Chu Feng still hadn't found Granny Meng's soup, which made him frown. On this day, when the sky was just beginning to brighten, he heard a strange sound while standing at the edge of the heaven pit. He cautiously looked down and unexpectedly saw a stone coffin climbing up the stone step. It was extremely difficult. Finally, it's been 4 years. This old man has finally climbed up again and is going to see the light of day again. It really wasn't easy, so difficult. Ancient dust boat, you little bastard, just you wait. When I break free from this stone coffin in the future, I'll definitely let you know why flowers are so red and why this old man's face is so brilliant. The 9 underworlds was roaring with an expression of great bitterness and deep hatred. During these 4 years, he had been extremely stifled and had experienced all kinds of life and death dangers in Yin Manor. Chapter 1062. It was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. The sarcophagus was like a living being, standing there stiffly, motionless and silent. Second brother. Chu Feng stood at the edge of the sinkhole with a brilliant smile on his face, like a winter jasmine in early spring. The 9 nether spirit in the sarcophagus was sure that he didn't hear wrongly. A nightmarish feeling welled up in his heart. Then, with a clank, he slipped off the stone in fright. Ah, help, I fell down again. The 9 nether spirit was anxious. His body trembled as he was distracted, causing the sarcophagus to fall. Amidst the clanking sounds, it kept colliding with the stone walls along the way. Fortunately, he wasn't far from the exit. There were many vines in the upper half of the sinkhole. The sarcophagus fell, breaking the dense vines, and finally stopped. Clank! The sarcophagus trembled as it was tossed onto a stone cliff by the 9 nether spirit. He really wanted to curse and curse. "God-damn little bastard, you actually waited for me here for 4 years. I #yen%. At this moment, his mood couldn't be described. After climbing for more than 4 years, he had just emerged, and he had run into that little bastard again. How great was his willpower! Could it be that he had been waiting for him here all along? He really couldn't help but ask the heavens. There was simply no justice in the world. He had been waiting here and still wanted to kick him down? At this moment, the 9 nether spirit wanted to cry. He felt that he was too unlucky to have met such a superb little bastard. It really made him speechless. Chu Feng acted like an old man. With a pair of small hands behind his back, he said, "Second brother, what's wrong with you? Why are you so emotional? This old man has been waiting for you for a long time. We should be closer." "To hell with being close to second brother. Back then, you were the one who kicked me down, and now you're pretending to be holy." The 9 nether spirit really wanted to eat him alive. However, after a moment of silence, he compromised. Lowering his stance, he opened his mouth in the sarcophagus. "Brother Chenzhou, what do you want?" Chu Feng raised his head, with a pair of small hands behind his back, and looked into the distance. He didn't look down at the sarcophagus at the bottom of the sinkhole. With a very profound expression, he said, "Do you know why I am waiting here?" "I do not know." The 9th nether Gui said. Actually, he was cursing in his heart. "You bastard, you're so bad that you have sores all over your head and pus all over your feet. Aren't you guarding here for this old man?" Chu Feng sighed and said, "I'm doing this for the sake of the common people, for the sake of saving the world of the living. I'm standing here, savoring the loneliness of the ages, pondering over the myriad scrolls of the mortal world. 9 Nethergue. Actually, he wanted to say, please speak normally. You're so old, have you weaned off milk? You have the nerve to spout nonsense. Even this old man is too embarrassed to act like this. Chu Feng coughed lightly and said, Second brother, you've lived here for a long time. Have you seen Granny Meng's soup? Go and get me 2 bowls. Why did he suddenly change the topic? The 9 Nether Ghost's heart skipped a beat, but he did not make a sound. He had a feeling that this grandson had come for him, and now that his intentions were revealed, the dagger was revealed. Chu Feng said solemnly, Second brother, this is very important. For the sake of the common people, I need 2 bowls of Meng Po's soup. Pretending to be a wolf with a big tail, the netherworld spirit really wanted to reprimand him. Chu Feng sensed his silence and lowered his head to take a look. He also jumped in fright. That stone coffin flipped to the side and revealed a terrifying area. There were claw marks on the stone coffin, and the strength was so great that it almost pierced through the coffin. Even the 9 Nether Ghost himself couldn't break open this kind of stone coffin and couldn't come out. There was actually a living being that clawed it to this state. Did it almost crack the coffin? Second brother, what kind of terrifying things have you experienced these few years? Even your own bed frame almost broke. You've really suffered. What exactly happened? Chu Feng had a very concerned look on his face. Meanwhile, the 9 Nether Ghost wanted to spit at him, and even more so wanted to use the sole of his shoe to stamp his face. What happened? Don't you know in your heart? 4 years ago you threw me into the heavenly pit and cried crocodile tears. Now you still have the nerve to show concern? Second brother, Big Brother is very concerned about you. What exactly was there in Een Manor for you to fall to such a state? You didn't suffer any great injuries, right? Chu Feng inquired about his well-being. The 9 Nether Ghost grinded his teeth and really wanted to bite him to death. However, when he heard about his experiences in Een Manor, he still shivered. That hellish torment made his scalp go numb even now. When he sunk into the Een soil, there were all kinds of scalp-numbing wails. There was also the dense smell of blood and soil. There were even terrifying claws that clawed at him from the soil and almost dug through his coffin, which was made of astonishing material. Even now, he still felt his blood run cold. He really didn't want to experience that kind of terrifying experience again. Second brother, why are you so silent? Chu Feng asked him. After a long period of silence, the 9 Nether Ghost opened his mouth and said in a rough voice, Don't call me second brother anymore. You're giving me goosebumps. Let's make a deal. Speak. The 9 Nether Ghosts said, In these 4 years, I've collected all the unearthed Granny Meng's soup. I can give you some, but you have to swear not to do anything and let me go. This time, it was Chu Feng's turn to be silent. He didn't make a sound for a long time. Only when a gust of mountain wind blew over did he suddenly let out a loud shout. Bastard, it's actually you. You made me wait for 4 years in vain and wasted my time. So it turns out that all the Granny Meng's soup was taken by you. This time, it was Chu Feng's turn to flip out. The 2 of them had switched roles. Chu Feng was flustered and exasperated. If he didn't have the half a precious pill refined from the 6 paths of reincarnation blood, he really wouldn't be able to do anything. Little bastard, now I finally understand that you have a request of me. Quickly let me go up. At this moment, the 9 Nether Ghost was calm and threatened Chu Feng from below. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A dozen divine magnetic stones flew down and formed a special pattern. They landed several meters away from the stone coffin, and then the 9 Nether Ghost cried out loudly because the entire coffin was shaking violently. There really is one? Chu Feng was astonished. He found that there were some crude stone containers hanging on the other side of the coffin. They were even sealed. He used his domain to shake the area and shook off 2 of the containers. Little bastard, how dare you? You actually dare to steal this old man's things. The Nine Nether Ghost was furious. There was no one who could pull a tiger's tooth out of its mouth, but now a child was actually robbing him. Moreover, he was doing it in such a brazen and undisguised manner. Whoosh whoosh. The domain shook, and the 2 stone containers moved away from the coffin. Chu Feng threw down a divine magnetic stone amidst the tearing sounds. It erupted with radiance and formed a small domain to protect the 2 sealed containers. Boom! The coffin shone with scarlet light and a bloody mist rose up. The Nine Nether Ghost wanted to rise up and snatch back the 2 stone containers. However, it was already too late. He was too far away and was obstructed by the domain. Additionally, this area was turning upside down and the terrain was shaking violently. The stone coffin would be overturned at any moment and fall into the sinkhole. There are actually 6 more jars of Granny Meng's soup? Again. Chu Feng shouted. Dream on. The Nine Nether Ghost said furiously. He was already stamping with rage after having 2 jars snatched away. Now, this little bastard wanted more? Are you going to give it to me or not? Chu Feng threatened. No. The Nine Nether Ghost stomped his feet. In truth, he wanted to haggle over the price. What benefits would he get if he gave it to him directly? However, Chu Feng was fairly decisive. He stood at the edge of the sinkhole and picked up a large limestone weighing several thousand kilograms. Then, he smashed it down. Boom! There was a violent tremor. Ah, little bastard, this old man will kill you! The Nine Nether Ghost cried out loudly. The stone coffin could no longer remain stable after being smashed. It fell down from the cliff and into the depths of the sinkhole. I've just climbed up. It's been 4 years and I've just seen the light of day again. But in the blink of an eye, I'm going back to freedom. Do you know how to negotiate? Don't you know how to bargain? It was cursing loudly. It was completely messed up and filled with fear. Chu Feng looked down at the sinkhole and shouted, Don't worry, there's still a large stone platform down there that can receive you. I reckon that you'll be able to climb up again in half a year. Climb slowly and we'll talk in half a year. Bastard! The Nine Nether Ghost was so angry that it was about to explode. Chu Feng slowly climbed down and picked up 2 stone utensils from a pile of rocks. He shook the utensils and the sound of water splashing could be heard. When he opened them, a dense and holy luster shone out. A sweet fragrance filled the air and the liquid was sparkling. Multicolored splendor circulated, attracting one's attention. Chu Feng quickly closed the lid, afraid that the medicinal effects would dissipate. This was Granny Meng's soup. He didn't dare to drink it in such a place. If he suddenly lost his memory, who knew what would happen? Second brother, reflect on yourself. We'll meet again in half a year. After Chu Feng finished shouting, he climbed up the sinkhole with a whoosh and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He couldn't wait to run back to the divine temple and drink Granny Meng's soup. When the red sun rose and illuminated the misty mountain forest with a bright red, Chu Feng stood in front of the divine temple and made all his preparations while facing the morning glow. He had already carved some words on the ground, in case he lost his memory, to remind himself of what to do. After that, he stared at the Granny Meng's soup. It was sparkling and translucent with radiance contained within. It would gush out from time to time and was accompanied by astonishing yang qi that could practically burn people. Chu Feng found a mountain wolf to experiment on and fed it a little. As a result, it became visibly stronger and revealed its ferocious nature. Even its gaze became fierce. In the end, he felt that there was no problem. He released the mountain wolf and began to drink it himself. Gulp! After drinking a big mouthful, Chu Feng felt waves of heat rolling all over his body. This came from his bone marrow. His whole body was enveloped in a layer of brilliance. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all translucent and his soul light was surging at the same time. He hurriedly operated his breathing technique to adjust his state. In an instant, he felt an indescribable energy growing in his body. It was filled with astonishing vitality and replenished his limbs and bones. It's really a great supplement. Chu Feng experienced the power of the Granny Meng's soup. It dissolved in his body but didn't activate his potential. Instead, the soup itself transformed into a mysterious energy that nourished all the cells in his body. It didn't guide out any special potential to further enhance his constitution. However, he knew that his potential was increasing rapidly and becoming stronger. Gulp! Chu Feng drank another big mouthful, and then sealed the vessel. He felt dizzy and vaguely saw another manner path with a bowl of Granny Meng's soup beside it. I'm actually hallucinating. He shook his head and didn't dare to drink anymore. In the end, his consciousness became blurry, and he felt his memory deteriorating as if he was about to lose it. Later on, all kinds of memories became hazy, and he couldn't remember them clearly. Only then did he fall to the ground with a plop and fall asleep. When he woke up the next day, he found Ji Hu, Fatty Dumpling and the others watching over him. They were very worried. "What's wrong with you? We saw the words you carved on the ground. Did you drink Granny Meng's soup? What's that? What kind of ghost soup is that? Do you want to die?" "It's nothing, it's very normal. I'll let you guys drink some later. It's a great supplement." Chu Feng shook his head and stood up. His memory had returned and he felt refreshed and full of energy. Just like that, half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Chu Feng drank the 2 jars of Granny Meng's soup and, of course, gave some to Ji Hu, Fatty Dumpling and the others. This was something that could increase one's potential and could especially make up for the body's deficiencies. It was one of the most precious liquids in the Yang realm. Chu Feng's spirit was obviously at its peak. All the cells in his body were glowing as if they were igniting one star after another. Afterwards, he went to the heavenly pit again. Because half a year had passed, he felt that the 9 nether spirits were about to climb up again. This time, he could have a good talk with them. In fact, he would rush over every morning to find out where this second brother of his had climbed to. Yes, I'll take it easy this time. Don't accidentally scare him into the deepest part of the heavenly pit. It was so dangerous last time. Fortunately, the vines and the stone chestnuts below caught the stone coffin. Underneath the heavenly pit, the 9 nether spirits was panting and almost used up all his strength before he finally saw the light of day again. Chapter 1063. I've finally climbed up again. I don't believe this grandson is so patient. He's still waiting up there. The 9 nether muttered to himself. At the same time, he was somewhat excited. This time, he had climbed even higher than last time and could already see the scenery outside the sinkhole. It was only a few dozen meters away. He said happily, "Great Yin and Great Yang, who's stronger? Once I appear, I'm the king of the world." The 9 nether had a smile on his face and seemed to be in a good mood. That was because he had already used his special spiritual senses to investigate the outside world. There was no movement, so that brat shouldn't be there. At this point, he wanted to sing a prehistoric immortal burial song at the top of his lungs. Damodala Aiden, not to mention, the majestic sound waves spread out with a desolate aura. It was as though he had seen an incomparably terrifying era where evolvers rose to power and immortals were buried. Vaguely, the battle spread over millions of kilometers. A node in the history of evolution resonated and was about to shatter. "Second brother, what song are you singing? The rhythm isn't bad, but I can completely understand this bird language." It was at this time that a young voice arrived and interrupted the 9 nether's mood. It petrified the 9 nether who was climbing with all his might and fixed the stone coffin between the stone cliffs. "You, why are you here again?" The 9 nether's mental defenses were about to collapse. This grandson's patience was simply too good. He had waited for him for half a year again? How could he know that Chu Feng was using domain methods? He had been monitoring his movements through the fluctuations of earth chi and had long since calculated when he would come up. Second brother, I haven't seen you for half a year. How have you been? I've missed you so much. Chu Feng's face was full of joy as he landed on the edge of the sinkhole like a magpie. Scram! The nine nether couldn't bear it any longer and really wanted to fall out. He even had the urge to jump into the sinkhole himself and not wait to be kicked down. But he was at a loss at the last moment and was extremely reluctant. He had climbed arduously for 4.5 years before seeing the light of day again. It was too miserable. Second brother, who are you scolding? Chu Feng asked him solemnly. You're cursing the heavens, it's none of your business. I'm just recalling the prehistoric times. During that era, this old man moved unhindered through the world, and no one dared to oppose me. But now, I want to cry. Come on, don't play the pity card. Dong Qing already said that as long as it's someone from the 9 underworlds, they would only have a vague impression. It's impossible for them to remember their past lives. Who are you trying to fool? Also, if you still want to cry, tell me how many people you've harmed in Lightning Strike Mountain. It's already good enough that I didn't immediately execute justice on behalf of the heavens and eliminate you, a scourge. The 9 nether gods' voice was sonorous and full of vigor as he said, I didn't harm good people. All those who died had greed in their hearts and evil intentions. I don't target good people. What do you mean? You've clearly harmed me before, and you're saying that I'm not a good person? Chu Feng tilted his head and looked down, rolling his eyes. Don't you know whether I'm a good person or not? Don't you know it yourself? The 9th netherworld Gui retorted. Boom. The reply he received was a rock that weighed more than 80 kilograms. It smashed onto the stone coffin, scaring the 9 netherworld Gui out of his wits. He thought that this little bastard was going to be ruthless again and smash him down. Why don't you try saying it again? Chu Feng threatened. Big brother, please be lenient. This time, I climbed up with sincerity because I want to negotiate with you. We'll use the prehistoric heaven burial curse to swear an oath that binds both parties. From now on, we'll become sworn brothers and share blessings together. Without a doubt, the rock just now made the 9 netherworld Gui terrified. If he was really smashed down and entered Een Manor again, it would be a fate worse than death. He reckoned that if he entered Een Manor again, the stone coffin would be torn apart by those terrifying claws. At that time, he most likely wouldn't be able to survive. All right, give me another 6 pots of Granny Meng's soup, shouted Chu Feng, officially starting the negotiation. Little bastard, that little brother, you're too ruthless. I've collected a total of 8 pots of Granny Meng's soup. I'll leave them for myself after I escape from the stone coffin. You stole 2 pots before, and now you're going to rob them all? Not a single pot is left. Don't be too greedy, we have to win together. All right then, give me 5 pots, and we'll share blessings together. Fuck your share blessings together, they're all mine, okay? This was dividing up, how was this sharing? The 9 netherworld Gui trembled in anger, and wanted to beat him up. Brother, a person can't be a primordial dust boat. Leave a way out for me, your brother. Say, you threw me down the first time, and then you smashed me down the second time. Isn't this a waste? This old man is basically helping you collect Granny Meng's soup down there. After painstakingly enduring for 4.5 years, in the end, I can only keep 1 pot for myself? I'll leave the other 2 pots for you. Chu Feng waved his small hand and had a very loyal appearance. In the end, he emphasized, I really can't give any more. The 9 netherworld Gui was furious and said, even the wicked prehistoric deities weren't as immoral as you. You're so young, yet you're so despicable, shameless, and vulgar. Do you think it's easy for this old man? In the end, I've worked hard for nothing. Besides, what's the use of having so much? Do you want to lose your memories? Chu Feng's heart was moved. Could it really erase one's memories if one drank too much of this thing? How about this? I'll leave you 3 pots. If I don't have enough, I'll ask you for more. My body has been quite weak recently, so I really need to replenish myself. Nonsense, I can clearly sense that your body's functions have reached an extreme. If you don't believe this old man, you'll definitely overdo it when the time comes. Chu Feng didn't want to listen to his rambling, so they made a mutual vow that he would leave 3 pots of Granny Meng's soup for himself and leave the rest on the ground. In the end, Chu Feng used his domains to move a few pots up and put them away for himself. Enough, second brother, let's discuss how to become sworn brothers. Chu Feng asked him about the heaven burial curse oath and verified it with the most powerful letter written by the stone fox Celestial Venerable's master. Before long, the 9 nether demon cried out, "What? You really want to be my big brother? What a joke! How long have I lived? I originally wanted to become sworn brothers with you and become your elder brother. How dare you make such an unreasonable request? It's not like you haven't called me that before. Let's just use the same address as last time. There's no need to change it. You won't lose out if you become my second brother. This so-called sworn brotherhood will definitely be a friendship that has gone through life and death. If you have any resentment in your heart, you might as well go back to Een Manor. Do you know who I am?" The 9 nether demon cried out. "I'm your second brother, Gu Chunhai." You what? You always think you're powerful from prehistoric times. Then tell me, why can't you jump up now? Become my second brother and I'll protect you. For a moment, the 9 nether demon was speechless. Although he was indignant, the situation was beyond his control. No matter how much he persisted, it would be futile and he would even suffer a great loss. Chu Feng asked, "Second brother, what use do you have now? Let me ask you, if I use you as a heaven-overturning seal and smash you, will you be invincible within a range of 10 meters and be able to swallow all the experts alive?" That was because he heard Dong Qing say last time not to get close to the stone coffin. Within a certain range, this 9 nether demon could show off its terrifying might. Chu Feng had some misgivings, but when the 9 nether demon heard his words, it was even more terrified than him and felt a wave of fear and trepidation. "What do you mean? You want to use me as a brick and smash me as you wish?" the 9 nether demon asked apprehensively. Chu Feng said, "After we become sworn brothers, I'm preparing to travel the world and officially make my debut. If you're a burden, how can you roam the world of the living with me? You have to be able to protect yourself. I have to understand your strength. You want to roam the world with such a small fart?" The 9 nether demon felt that this grandson didn't have any good ideas. He wanted to bring it along as a protective talisman. He definitely wanted to achieve some kind of goal. "Are you thinking of going somewhere but don't dare to go on your own?" it asked vigilantly. "Nonsense. I just want to meet the heroes of the world." With a clang, Chu Feng used his domain to bring up the stone coffin. He saw the rising sun and the faint golden radiance illuminated everything. The stone coffin was no longer shrouded in yin qi and the patterns on it were all glowing. "Come, second brother. We're about to become sworn brothers. Let's drink a cup of Grandma Meng's soup first." Chu Feng opened a jar and drank a small mouthful with an intoxicated expression. Now, he already knew that he wouldn't faint no matter how much he drank, so he wasn't worried. "How am I supposed to drink?" "Let me out of the stone coffin," said the 9 nether demon. "I can't open the stone coffin. You can give me a jar of Grandma Meng's soup and I'll drink it in your place." "I don't want to talk." The 9 nether demon was indignant, but its mood soon improved. This little devil didn't kick it down the sinkhole again. Its heart was full of hope as it saw the dawn of freedom. Chi! Suddenly, a terrifying beam of light flew over from the distance. An iron arrow shot through the ground in front of Chu Feng with a bang and formed a large pit. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been killed on the spot. At the critical moment, his extraordinary spiritual senses, which far surpassed his actual realm, saved him. After all, he was once a divine king. Then, he saw a red-scaled beast appear in the distance. It was shaped like a Pegasus, but its body was covered in scarlet dragon scales. It raised its head and neighed. A young man in his teens was sitting on top of it with a cold smile as he slowly lowered his bow. "Who are you? Why are you shooting people at will?" Chu Feng angrily rebuked. "Oh, put down the stone jar in your hand. That's my fortune." The young man spoke with a cold smile and an indifferent attitude. He didn't take Chu Feng seriously at all. His eyes were fiery as he stared at the stone jar containing Grandma Meng's soup. Chu Feng was immediately enraged after hearing this. He actually dared to provoke the Tai Sui, steal his precious liquid, and even wanted to kill him. This was intolerable. "Put down the stone jar and scram if you don't want to die," said the young man. Woof! In the forest, an enormous vicious dog ran over. It was as large as a house, and its bloody mouth was wide open, carrying a terrifying viciousness. "Dog, tear me to pieces and bring our natural luck over," the young man coldly ordered. He looked at Chu Feng and revealed a sneer. He didn't care about his life or death. At the same time, the sounds of people shouting and horses neighing could be heard from the forest. A group of people rushed over. There were more than 10 of them, and they were all experts. They carried divine radiance around them. There were actually deities among them. "You all are courting death. I'll help you out," Chu Feng coldly replied. He knew that this battle was unavoidable. Perhaps it was time for a dragon to soar through the desolate border and stir up a storm. Chapter 1064. Chu Feng was furious. This youth was too domineering, wanting to kill him with an iron arrow and snatch away Granny Meng's soup. He waited solemnly. The group of people on the other side were not kind. Divine radiance actually rushed out, and the group of people were like stars surrounding the moon as they rushed forward to protect the youth. The one charging at the very front was naturally that big dog. Its entire body was dark red, as if it had been fighting all year round and bathed in the blood of all kinds of beasts, causing its fur to be blood red. This 4-meter-tall dog brought about a gale when it ran, sending sand and stones flying. There was a strong smell of blood in the air. Chu Feng's face revealed a cold expression. He originally had no enmity with this youth, but the other party had stolen his fortune and even wanted to let the dog injure him. "Red Lion, bite him ruthlessly and tear him to pieces," the youth shouted from behind with a cold smile on his face. He gave the order without a care, wanting this tall and fierce dog to tear the child at the edge of the sky crater to pieces. This kind of words and that kind of cold expression showed how cruel he was. He had no regard for life and didn't care about this matter at all. It was as if he was hunting in the forest. Roar! After the big dog heard this, its evil aura became even stronger, and its roar was like thunder. It became increasingly ferocious, and the dark red fur on its body stood up, revealing its snow-white fangs. Behind, the group of people didn't care at all and had no sympathy. They watched a young child about to be killed and a big dog that was as tall as a house pouncing over. They were all laughing loudly, taking pleasure in it. Chu Feng dodged with a swoosh and didn't immediately retaliate. He was more concerned about the powerful evolver among the group of people. It was a big problem, and this big dog's mouth was full of the smell of blood. It let out a fierce bark like thunder and leaped over. Red Lion, be more agile. You can't even pounce on a child? You dared to kill a mountain flood dragon, a vicious beast that massacred an entire village. Don't be so gentle. The people behind jeered and shouted loudly. Their words brought with them some cruel facts, ordering the fierce dog to move more swiftly. Chu Feng's eyes were sharp, and he dodged once again. Activating the geomagnetic gas, he grasped the profound magnetic energy contained in the terrain and started moving the stone coffin. Regardless of whether it was the dragon nest or the sky pit, they both belonged to the sky-gourd terrain. They contained a large number of magnetic stones and even a lot of magnetic marrow. This kind of terrain could be used by Chufeng. Roar. As the dark red hound roared, it leapt more than 10 meters away, bringing with it a strong gust of wind and a fishy smell as it rushed nearby. Along the way, some trees were broken by it, and some rocks were cracked by its thick claws, sending soil and rocks flying in all directions. Such a small body, but its movements are quite agile. However, it is still not enough to fill the gaps between the red lion's teeth. One swipe of its claws and it will become a meat patty. There were people in the back who teased them. It was as if a human tragedy was about to unfold, yet they were all full of enthusiasm and excitement. They were naturally cruel. Buzz! Chufeng borrowed the help of the geomagnetic energy and utilized an extremely profound domain technique to move the stone coffin through the air. Then, he suddenly swatted it toward the pouncing dog. If not for the fact that he was too young and his own strength was limited, he would have been able to use this kind of terrain to execute a killing technique. Roar! This vicious hound's foot-long red fur danced in the wind, and it became increasingly ferocious. It leapt into the air and swooped down toward Chufeng. Its body was exceptionally strong, and it was covered in bulging muscles. It had a square head and big ears, and when it opened its scarlet mouth, it revealed its white fangs and emitted a dense killing intent. Bang! At this moment, the stone coffin seemed to have been grabbed by an invisible hand and swung. With a boom, it smashed into the air and smashed onto the vicious hound's body, giving it a solid hit. This vicious hound was immediately smashed into a bloody mess in midair. It let out a blood-curdling screech after being smashed by a tremendous force. Its spine was broken, and a large piece of its fur fell off. How hard was the stone coffin's material? Following which, the large hound howled and whimpered. It was overflowing with ferocity just a moment ago, but now even its tail was tucked between its legs as it struggled with all its might. However, during the process of being smashed into the ground by the stone coffin, the blood in its body surged violently, and its body rapidly became thinner and weaker. "Take it easy." Chufeng secretly transmitted his voice. He was afraid that his resentful second brother would go too crazy and cause the scene to be too bloody and frightening. Bang! The large hound didn't move after falling to the ground. Its body was covered in blood, which flowed all over the ground. It had suffered 2 heavy blows in succession, and its spine and skull were broken. It had died a miserable death. "You're courting death. You dare to kill my beloved hound? Kill him for me." The youth sitting on a mount that was shaped like a celestial horse and covered in scarlet scales ordered. His face was as calm as water, and his eyes were gloomy and cold. He also drew his large bow, nocked an iron arrow, and shot forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One figure after another pounced forward. Their movements were vigorous, and every one of them was very strong. Dang! Chufeng dodged and used the stone coffin to block the iron arrow. With a bang, the iron arrow exploded and turned into iron powder. How could it possibly shake the stone coffin? Heavens, is this the heavenly gold stone? It's a kind of rare material that can be used to refine celestial venerable level secret treasures. Heavens, this is the most sacred of artifacts. I can't believe I've actually seen such a large piece here. Someone used it to make a coffin. What a waste. An old man with a head full of small braids behind him shouted, incomparably excited. At the same time, he was also emitting a divine radiance. It originated from an earthen jar in his hand, and a misty holy radiance was emitted from within. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. 6 or 7 people rushed over together with cold killing intent. Each of them stretched out their large hands to grab at Chufeng. They wanted nothing more than to slap him to death. "All of you, get out of the way!" In the back, the old man with a head full of braids shouted. He stared at the stone coffin with a fiery gaze. And this time, Chu Feng activated the geomagnetic energy to wrap around the stone coffin. He resolutely and decisively flipped over heaven abyss and jumped down just like that. "Don't make a sound," Chu Feng transmitted his voice. Otherwise, he was afraid that the 9 netherworld spirit would cry out. In reality, the 9 netherworld spirit was simply frightened out of its wit. It didn't want to enter Een Manor again. "Come back here and leave behind the supreme treasure." The old man used a secret technique. His palms and fingers shone as he made a move towards the bottom of heaven abyss to restrain the stone coffin. In reality, the one Chu Feng was most apprehensive about was this old man. He felt the aura of divinity on his body, and later on, he discovered that it came from the earthen jar in his hand, so he relaxed a little. Now, Chu Feng was extremely cooperative and threw the stone coffin out of the natural pit. Swoosh! The stone coffin rushed up and was caught by the old man's green energy hand, restraining it in front of his eyes. "Haha, it really is the heavenly gold stone. This is a peerless refining material and a rare treasure. If it was made into a medicine refining furnace, the effects would be the best. Today, I should obtain this great fortune and have a chance of becoming a saint." The old man laughed heartily, feeling very satisfied. Chu Feng immediately hid in the stone jar, afraid of being captured by the old man. He was even prepared to use his previous life's Tao fruit, but he discovered that the old man was too excited and only had eyes for the stone coffin. At the same time, he understood that he had overestimated the other party's strength. The old man was only a half-saint, and all the oddities originated from the aura emitted by the earthen jar in his hand. On this land, even half-saints couldn't leave the ground or fly. 6th Grandpa, this coffin is actually a rare treasure? The youth sitting on the red-scaled beast was astonished. He narrowed his eyes and revealed 2 rays of light. He also wanted to take away a portion of the material. The others also gathered and looked at the stone coffin. The stone coffin was silent and didn't move. Naturally, the 9 underworlds was especially cooperative. It was greedier than anyone else and couldn't wait to suck everyone's blood dry. It was waiting for everyone to come closer. Otherwise, when dealing with that big dog, it wouldn't have let its blood flow all over the ground, but would have sucked it all away. Everything was done to avoid being exposed and frightening others. Look, the patterns on this stone coffin are complicated and exquisite. One look and you can tell that it's the work of a famous master. It contains a very shocking Tao rhythm. Just these carvings are treasures. Oh, I wonder if there are other treasures in this coffin, because this is definitely not something that ordinary people can use. When they were alive, they were at least celestial venerables. The old man with a head full of braids said with a trembling voice. He was incomparably excited. Perhaps this was the greatest fortune of his life. "I have a premonition that this is a peerless fortune," he said with a trembling voice. The stone coffin was silent and the 9 underworlds didn't act out. He wanted to wait for these people to wake up a bit and then find Chu Feng. It would be best if he could get rid of his sworn brother. Chu Feng waited for a moment and listened to those people's endless chatter. His reaction was sharp and he immediately felt that something wasn't right. According to the 9 underworld's grandson's personality, how could he be so merciful and not take action? Was he trying to trick him? Go find that youth and capture him alive. Sure enough, the old man spoke. That youth sneered and said, "Tear off one of his arms, break 2 of his legs, and then bring him over. I believe that he didn't commit suicide in the natural crater, and is only hiding under the stone cliff. Idiots, there is a vicious creature in the coffin in your hands. Hurry up and throw it away." In the distance, Chu Feng shouted loudly, forcing the 9 underworlds to quickly take action. The people present were all stunned, but they all reacted quickly. Some directly retreated with lightning speed, and there were others who sneered in disdain. They were extremely calm and didn't believe him at all, thinking that he was swindling them. However, the 9 underworlds himself had to believe him. He immediately became anxious. How could he tolerate the prey that was already in his hands running away? He was scared of losing everything. Hong! It exploded, and a terrifying bloody mist soared. The area within a radius of 3 zhang was enveloped, and this area immediately became like a dark underworld. Ah! Miserable cries rose and fell. That half-saint was the most miserable, bearing the brunt of it all. Just now, his face was still full of smiles, saying that this was the greatest opportunity of his life. In the end, his smile froze there. Before it could disappear, his body began to shrivel up, and in a split second, he was only skin and bones. Ah! Those people also cried out miserably and struggled with all their might. Only a few of them managed to break free, but they were already emaciated. Their entire bodies seemed to have aged several thousand years as they fell not far away. These were the people who reacted rather quickly and rushed out after hearing Chu Feng's warning. They escaped from the forbidden land of death within a radius of 3 zhang. Meanwhile, those who were calm and disdainful were all stuck to the stone coffin. The 9 underworlds was dissatisfied and said, "Sworn brother, what is the meaning of this? Interfering with my collection of the spiritual blood of all living things, are we still good brothers? Can we still travel the world with our swords? You're the one complaining first. Just now you didn't make a move. Were you trying to borrow someone else's hand to kill me?" With a rumble, Chu Feng activated the geomagnetic energy and shook the stone coffin. Crackling sounds rang out as dried corpses fell to the ground. He was practically snatching food from a tiger's mouth. The 9 underworlds was furious and shouted, "Ah, what are you doing? These are all my food. You're too disloyal." You! That youth didn't die, but his temples were already grizzled at such a young age. It was unknown how much life potential he had been deprived of. Even his bones could be seen through his loose skin. He was very weak as he collapsed beside his mount, the red-scaled beast. The old man with a head full of braids died. Although he was the strongest and a half-saint, he died the most miserably. The ground was littered with dried corpses. In the end, only 4 people survived, and they were all extremely weak. How boring! I thought that this divine king would have to personally take action. In the end, I didn't expect that I couldn't even stop my second brother from opening his mouth and inhaling. T divine king. The 9 underworlds was the most disdainful and didn't believe it at all. Chu Feng walked over and, with a bang, sent the youth flying with a kick. Chapter 1065. Not long ago, this youth was domineering and domineering, disregarding the lives and deaths of ordinary people, ordering the mastiff to tear apart Chu Feng. He sat on the dragon-scaled beast as he watched, finding joy in this. Yet now, his temples were grizzled, crying bitterly, begging Chu Feng to let him go. The contrast between before and after was too great. Why is there a need to do this? Chu Feng looked at him, feeling quite disgusted. This youth bullied others with his power, cruel and domineering, changing from arrogance to deference. Now the contrast was too great. No matter how low his stance was, it was still difficult for others to feel sympathy, only more and more loathing. "Spare me, I am willing to give you a piece of news. There is a great opportunity in Desolate Borders' Black Domain Forest. Soon, something that will shake up the world of the living is going to happen." The youth was all skin and bones. He knelt on the ground, quietly explaining to Chu Feng. Chu Feng sneered. No matter how great the opportunity was, could it compare to the dragon nest from a few years ago? What kind of place did he treat Desolate Border as? Did he really think that every inch of the mountains and rivers was mysterious, that there was another world? "It's true, have you heard of reincarnation hunters?" The youth's voice was weak. He struggled to take a step forward, saying this with a low voice. However, even though his voice wasn't loud in Chu Feng's ears, it was like thunder. He actually mentioned this title, making his heart surge. Kill! Right at this time, the youth erupted with power, his originally dim and sunken eyes releasing a sinister radiance. His skin and bones palm was sparkling and translucent like jade, sending a palm towards Chu Feng. This was the mysterious jade palm. Pooh! Bloody radiance erupted. An arm flew out, accompanied by a miserable scream. That youth left as quickly as he came, staggering backwards, falling onto the ground. However, he was only skin and bones, not even blood flowing out from his wound. Chu Feng stood in place, in his hands a mother gold dagger. It was bright red and sparkling, stars, black holes, and other patterns appearing on its surface. This was his spoils of war, obtained after defeating the extreme martial lineage's inheritor in the dragon nest. He had never used it before, today was the first time he used it. Why don't you weigh your own capabilities first? How dare you plot against this godly king? When yours truly was roaming the universe, you were still wearing diapers. The young man wanted to vomit blood after hearing this. Half of it was because he was injured, and the other half was because he was angry. However, in the end, he coughed violently and only a few streaks of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Young master! The three at the back were also loyal. They had aged for thousands of years, but they crawled up with great difficulty, wanting to fight against Chu Feng. I'll give you a quick death, Chu Feng said. He raised his sword and three heads flew out. He didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy or pity, because none of these people were good people. Not long ago, when they saw the vicious dog about to tear apart a child, they were all laughing loudly, exceptionally cold-blooded. Letting such a person go was tantamount to condoning a murderer and harming others. What a delicious meal! It's such a waste. Give it to me. The nine nether sighed. Chu Feng said, I'll leave this young man to you. Don't kill him right away. I want to know if he really has some secret or a great opportunity. He kicked the one-armed young man and sent him flying, landing in front of the stone coffin. The young man was very decisive. He was ruthless to others and also extremely ruthless to himself. He suddenly took out a dagger and stabbed at the space between his brows. It'll be hard for you to die even if you want to. The nine nether spoke sinisterly. No matter how kind, majestic, and radiant this kind of creature was when it was alive, once it crawled out of the manor of hell, it would be considered a different species. It would become savage, sinister, and sinister with terrifying methods. Even if it was an unrivaled hero when it was alive, it would return as a nine nether being after the long years of death. It was destined to represent evil. Comparatively speaking, this nine nether being was a bit special and strange. It hadn't displayed a side that was too terrifying. The young man was sucked in by the stone coffin and couldn't stab down with his dagger. His body trembled violently, and then his expression distorted. He couldn't withstand the invasion of a kind of evil energy and confessed everything. I come from the north, I'm the young master of a small city. The city he was in couldn't even compare to a county town. It only had a population of 50,000, and it was adjacent to the tribes of the great wilderness. It could be considered a lawless region that bordered the desolate border. Chu Feng was shocked. This was a small city with a population of 50,000, yet its city lord was a saint. The Yang realm really wasn't simple. The little Yin realm couldn't compare to this place after all. It is indeed true. Reincarnation hunters have appeared, and their target is precisely the desolate border. The young man seemed to be talking in his sleep as he continuously spoke about the secrets in his heart. His father welcomed an esteemed guest, and it was actually a divine king. Meanwhile, that divine king was the disciple of a heavenly deity and was in charge of gathering information in the desolate border. Because he had friendly relations with the city lord's ancestor, he revealed a few secrets. Reincarnation hunters have appeared, and they were going to desolate border to carry out a hunt. When Chu Feng heard this, he sucked in a cold breath of air. He was extremely shocked when he first heard about reincarnation hunters in the Yang realm. Were they finally going to appear today? Dong Qing said that this type of creature was too mysterious and no one could see them. Now there were people who secretly learned of their whereabouts. What did this signify? After my father learned of this secret information, he believed that this was a great opportunity and sent many people into the desolate border to investigate. Meanwhile, I was only pretending to hunt, but I was actually searching everywhere. What are you all looking for? Chu Feng asked. A great being who is in the final stages of decline. He is the target of the reincarnation hunters. When the young man spoke of this secret information, it left Chu Feng greatly shaken, as well as the 9 netherworlds beings horrified. Once that dying great being completely died, that meant that his cave would become an ownerless land. For the people of the outside world, this was a great opportunity. Why is it like this? Why would the reincarnation hunters target a creature that is about to die? Chu Feng was confused. In reality, he couldn't calm down at all. It was because he knew that in the depths of the desolate border, in a mountain ridge near Black Domain Forest, there really was a dying great being sleeping. Back then, he had even personally experienced that dream. It was extremely terrifying. That year, there was also a divine king-level heavenly genius named Ji Kaixian, as well as a white-haired youngster Li Jiuxiao whose entire body was drenched by Chu Feng's rain for an entire season. They both personally experienced that great being's terrifying dream, almost dying. Did the reincarnation hunters come for this great being? What was the reason? According to reports, the great being hibernating in the depths of the desolate border burned 3 special talismans in succession to communicate with reincarnation. He wants to reincarnate in the world of the living and directly be reborn. The young man actually spoke of such a shocking secret. Chu Feng was dumbfounded, and even the 9 netherworlds beings were greatly shaken. Could it be that he could directly reincarnate in the world of the living and didn't need to go to the land of reincarnation? How was that possible? He didn't even need to take a trip to the road of reincarnation? Chu Feng was shocked. He couldn't believe it no matter what. There was a ruthless fellow living in this desolate land, and he wanted to go against the heavens? The 9 netherworlds beings said with a trembling voice, "Impossible, no one can succeed like this. Back then, in the evolutionary history I was in, no one could directly reincarnate in the world of the living. He must go on the road of reincarnation." What it was talking about was naturally prehistoric times. It was too far away from today. In other words, there is indeed such a possibility. There is such a method? Asked Chu Feng. The 9 netherworlds beings said, "It's only a legend, but it's impossible to succeed." How deep is the water on the road of reincarnation? Even the fierce person who unified 1/20th of the world of the living had lamented that no one could avoid the land of reincarnation. He said that the water on the road of reincarnation was too deep, and if they knew the truth, they could scare a celestial venerable to death. When Chu Feng heard this, he felt a chill down his back. At the same time, he revealed a doubtful expression and said, "You're a 9 netherworlds being. How can you still remember what happened when you were alive?" Cough, I only remember one thing. I'm a bit special. The 9 netherworlds being shut up. The young man couldn't help but say everything he needed to say in his daze. Chu Feng flicked out a beam of divine light from a distance and pierced the space between his brows, giving him a quick death and ending his life. This matter isn't simple. If things aren't handled well, the heavens will be overturned, and the world of the living will be thrown into chaos. Chu Feng muttered to himself with a heavy heart. 4.5 years had passed, and bloody light overflowed into the heavens from Harmony Province. It covered the boundless territories, and a bloody mist enveloped the vast great wasteland. It made the people of the outside world tremble in fear, and they didn't dare to approach. Everyone in the world was looking at Harmony Province, and they didn't know when that being would completely revive and come out. And now, reincarnation hunters had appeared in the desolate U Province, and they wanted to target a supreme being that was on the verge of death. As expected, the world was going to be thrown into chaos. There's a problem here. What qualifications does a little city lord have to know about this matter? Even that divine king doesn't have the qualifications. There's definitely something hidden here. The 9 netherworlds being in the stone coffin spoke. He believed that there was something going on here. Did the reincarnation hunters come on their own, or did someone purposely lead them here? Even if it's just capturing a supreme being on the verge of death, it's still a world-shaking matter. To dare to involve this level, the person involved must be very courageous. This pond is a bit muddy, and it's also somewhat terrifying and dangerous. I really want to return to Heaven's Pit to hide for a period of time. The 9 netherworlds being muttered to himself and said a bunch of words. He was very afraid. Chu Feng placed his small hands behind his back and said, "Second brother, we agreed to travel the world with our swords. Could it be that you still want to return to Een Manor alone? However, I won't force you. How about I personally send you back? I won't go back even if you beat me to death." The 9 netherworlds being shook his head with force. He shuddered when he recalled the experience underground, and he didn't want to experience it again. Suddenly, he thought of another possibility and said, Could it be that the so-called reincarnators are heading for Een Manor? Then all the more I can't go back. Since that's the case, second brother, you should go and have a good rest. Chu Feng finished speaking and quickly set up a teleportation domain. He blasted the 9 netherworlds into it and directly sent it away. "Ah, where are you sending me?" Before disappearing, he let out a loud cry and felt his blood run cold. Could it be that this little bastard violated the agreement and wanted to kill him? "I'm sending you back to your hometown," said Chu Feng. "What? Ah!" The 9 netherworlds was in despair and shouted loudly. However, in an instant, the stone coffin smashed down from the void and landed on top of a mountain. "Ah, this isn't Een Manor's hometown. You scared your grandpa to death. Damned little bastard, this is Lightning Strike Mountain? This evil creature." He was incomparably angry, and his heart was filled with hatred. In the end, that little bastard sent him back to the forbidden land of imprisonment, the Lightning Strike Mountain where the Divine Temple's fairy had trapped him. "You should rest here first. When I'm about to bid farewell to this desolate land, I'll come and find you. We'll go on our way together." Chu Feng came to see him and then quickly left. He really wanted to stay in the desolate border for a period of time. Whether or not reincarnation hunters would appear, he would have to wait for a period of time. Chu Feng felt that after more than 4 years, he couldn't sense the slightest bit of reincarnation information from his body, so he wasn't worried about himself. Especially after drinking Grandma Meng's soup, he felt that the smell of the Divine Temple's fairy on his body had completely disappeared. This made him feel even more at ease. However, 8 days later, something unexpected still happened, shocking changes happening. 2 creatures descended from the sky and landed on the short mountain behind the Ji clan's tribe. There was no other thought in Chu Feng's mind. While feeling horrified, he immediately thought that these should be reincarnation hunters. Chapter 1066. These were 2 strange and demonic creatures that descended from the sky. They cried out in midair, causing Chu Feng to immediately feel his soul darken. His entire person almost fell to the ground. What was this? Were the so-called reincarnation hunters like this? In a split second, Chu Feng's body tensed up. The cells all over his body seemed to have condensed into a steel plate. He found it hard to believe. A single cry actually made his multicolored soul light turn jet black in a split second. Although he returned to normal in a split second, it still made him indescribably shaken and his heart palpitate. What kind of situation was this? You didn't fall. You're not a reincarnator. A hoarse voice came from midair. It was aged and carried a metallic trill, as if two iron plates were rubbing against each other. This cry was actually aimed at reincarnators? Chu Feng was flabbergasted. He didn't know why, but he withstood it and wasn't injured. The two creatures slowly descended. Their appearances were different and they were rather odd. In particular, their statures were extremely short. They weren't even worth mentioning when compared to the frightening figures he had imagined. One of the creatures was over a meter tall. Its body was like a shriveled gecko, and even its skin was like this. It was ashy, and as for its head, it was the head of an aged man. From head to tail, it was dull and lusterless. Moreover, it was as thin as firewood. It didn't have any mighty temperament to speak of. However, it was dangerous and would frighten people just by looking at it. Chu Feng sensed the aura of reincarnation. It was similar to some kind of pervasive energy on the reincarnation path. The other creature was only over a meter long. It was a black fox, but its mouth was shaped like an eagle's beak. The bird's beak was curved and scarlet like blood. It contrasted strongly with its black body. Moreover, there was a vertical eye between its brows. It was dim and lightless. As a whole, it looked like a three-eyed eagle-beaked black fox. The two creatures had something in common. They were shriveled and short, their skin wrapped around their bones. Their eye sockets were sunken, and they looked like they were about to rot. After this creature landed on the short mountain, it didn't say a word and directly entered the divine temple to search. Was it coming for the young lady Dong Qing was following? Chu Feng was convinced that these two creatures were related to reincarnation. They made him think of some creatures and some kind of weapon. They were too similar. Only these two creatures were especially terrifying, intimidating. Similarly, they were all skin and bones. They looked like they were rotting or even rotten. However, the ones he had seen before were humanoid, while these two were aliens. Soldiers in tattered armor on the path of reincarnation. His heart was in turmoil as he thought of many things. Those soldiers all carried standard weapons on their backs, samsara knives. They were like the living dead, their bodies decaying. No one knew how long they had been here. Maybe millions of years, maybe hundreds of millions of years, or maybe they didn't belong to this part of history. They guarded the path of reincarnation, mechanically maintaining the order on the path, but their souls seemed to have died a long time ago. Chu Feng was shocked and horrified. This was the aura of a creature on the path of reincarnation. How did it transmit to the world of the living? After such a long time, he had gradually forgotten about the creatures on the path of reincarnation. Now that he saw the hunter, this memory was evoked, and he felt that it was unimaginable. Regardless of whether it was celestial venerable stone fox, his master from the world of the living, the 9 netherworlds, or even that terrifying creature from prehistoric times who had unified 1/20th of the world of the living, they all said that the waters of the path of reincarnation were too deep. Before this, Chu Feng had only listened. Although he was moved, he didn't have much direct experience. Now, he deeply experienced it. The person who had set up the path of reincarnation had long since extended his hands into the world of the living. Were these so-called reincarnation hunters serving him? This was truly somewhat terrifying. Previously, he had thought that the path of reincarnation was isolated. He had never connected it with other places or a certain period of time. But now, how could it be an isolated place? It had a close connection with the world of the living and had coexisted with time for a long time. The source was unknown. From the lesser netherworld to the world of the living, or even the greater netherworld, it could all involve the path of reincarnation. From the prehistoric era of the 9 netherworlds to the current world, reincarnation existed. All of this was inseparable and didn't exist alone. For a moment, Chu Feng's body went slightly cold. Then, he felt a bone-piercing chill. The level involved and the creature behind the scenes were truly too terrifying. What kind of person and creature could actually live for so long and control all of this? However, among the known races and evolvers in the world, such a person shouldn't exist at all. From ancient times until now, no one could avoid death. In the end, they would return to dust and decay. Some creatures and ultimate evolvers lived for a long time because they were hibernating and used the terrain of the mountains and rivers to nourish themselves. They were usually in deep sleep to reduce their consumption as much as possible. That was why they seemed to live for a frighteningly long time, but in the end they would still die. According to rumors, the reason why the famous mountains and rivers of the world of the living were so magnificent and earth-shattering was related to these people dying underground. Why could the so-called earth-shattering terrain kill evolvers? Even celestial venerables might die if they entered. How could pure mountains and rivers kill people? Even if the terrain of the mountains was strange and the huge amount of energy guided by the magnetic field, it shouldn't be like this and couldn't kill gods. The main reason was that after the ultimate powerhouses hibernated and fell into deep sleep, they would finally die underground. Their bodies would melt and form a terrifying terrain that shook the famous mountains and rivers of the world of the living. It was only after they fused with the Tao and became one with the earth that it formed a dangerous land that could kill people. Chu Feng's thoughts scattered as he thought of many things. His heart couldn't calm down for a long time. Since there were no undying creatures, all evolvers would die in the end. But who were these hunters serving? Could the mastermind behind the scenes really live for so long? He didn't quite believe it. Even if it was an organization, it spanned the present world and even prehistoric times. It wasn't a branch of an evolutionary civilization and spanned the past and present. It was too frightening. Moreover, Chu Feng didn't believe an organization could be so strict and be preserved consistently. As long as the founder died, such a huge inheritance would definitely cause disputes among the various successors. It's a bit strange and terrifying. The land of reincarnation has existed for a long time. There's an invisible hand controlling it, watching coldly in the darkness. It's too frightening. Chu Feng thought to himself. He had thought of too many things. He even thought of celestial venerable stone fox's reminder and his personal experience on the road of reincarnation. There were clearly great battles on that ancient road. There were traces of bitter battles. This meant that an intense game had been involved. No one party could control everything. There was no need to fear those who could challenge the mastermind behind the scenes. Moreover, it didn't seem to be one or two people or two parties. The more Chu Feng thought about it, the more he felt that the depth of this pond was frightening. Chu Feng sighed. As he slowly understood, he had some answers in his heart. He gradually understood why celestial venerable stone fox, the 9 netherworlds, and the super powerhouses of prehistoric times revered the land of reincarnation. The truth behind this was really frightening. However, it was so hazy. From ancient times until now, it had been wrapped in a layer of dense fog. No one could see the truth. Soon after, Chu Feng thought of his experience in the foreign realm. When he returned, he had used the stone box to sneak in. He had seen a large eye monitoring something between the walls of the universe. At the same time, on the way back, he had seen a group of prehistoric giants in the void between the lesser Een realm and the foreign realm. They were shockingly tall, comparable to planets. They also had the aura of reincarnation and even carried reincarnation blades on their back. They were all gods and devils. They were opening up a path that led to who knew where. Some of them were numb like walking corpses, while others were passionate and stirring. Just where were they going? What kind of path were they looking for? Chu Feng thought about it again and again. Reincarnation had traversed too many years. It wasn't in the history of evolution. The source was shrouded in layers of fog. It was also strange and terrifying. He could only sigh. Right now, he was still far from that level. He could only speculate that while laughing in the world of mortals on the surface, he was secretly accumulating power. Only when he got revenge one day might he have a chance to uncover some of the mysteries. If he became stronger, he might even have a chance of participating. There are no traces of reincarnation. It seems like the information we received was wrong. Two creatures walked out from the temple, their voices aged. In reality, they were quite old-fashioned, not attaching much importance to this place. Their main targets were the powerful beings in the depths of desolate border. "We are going to hunt down that powerful being." So. They tore through the air, their speed just too fast. Chu Feng found it hard to calm down. These two creatures seemed to be mechanically obeying some type of order. They weren't nimble enough, not paying much attention to this place. Inside the temple, ever since that fairy's statue, as well as her magical body, was moved away, this place became ordinary, no longer having the atmosphere of the past. This was why those two creatures didn't receive any benefits, not sensing anything at all. Something big is going to happen in the end. They are going to hunt down a dying powerful being? However, even though these two creatures are strong, I didn't sense that type of terrifying energy. Chu Feng was doubtful. Could these two creatures really kill a dying powerful being? He even felt that they couldn't even kill a celestial venerable. They hadn't reached that level yet. Only, he still felt that it was dangerous. Perhaps it's just an innate nemesis, and they have special methods? Chu Feng's cry not too long ago was truly terrifying. It made his soul light turn pitch black in an instant. He decided that he needed to research it for a bit and train his soul light in a targeted manner in the future to prevent this kind of thing from happening again in the future. If that dying powerful being dies and is killed by the reincarnation hunters, the residents he left behind will really cause a huge commotion. It will be even more astonishing than a dragon's nest. However, Chu Feng always felt that there was something going on here. It wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Who was sending a letter to the reincarnation hunters and guiding them here? Weren't some clans and great powers in the Yang realm too terrifying? There were people who could come into contact with existences on the reincarnation path? Or could it be that the existences behind the reincarnation path originally resided in the Yang realm? Chu Feng thought of an old friend, young lady Shi. Was she doing well after returning to the Yang realm? Back then, young lady Shi had once said that she had seen a standard reincarnation blade in the Yang realm. It might belong to a certain clan or even power. Looks like I have to leave the desolate border as soon as possible. I really have to travel the world with my sword and improve myself as quickly as possible. I can find old friends along the way and understand more. Chapter 1067. Chu Feng pondered for a while in the Divine Temple and decided to make preparations as soon as possible. He decided to rush to Mount Lightning Strike to have a chat with the 9th Netherworld Spirit. Mount Lightning Strike wasn't far, so it didn't take long for Chu Feng to arrive. He walked through the sealed area and approached the mountain peak. His body immediately tensed up. He actually saw those two creatures. They had discovered the reincarnation hunters. They stood at the top of the mountain. One was a three-eyed eagle-beaked black fox, and the other was a lizard with a human head. They were only 2 to 3 feet tall, and their temperaments were strange and frightening. What surprised Chu Feng was that one of them was standing on the stone coffin and had been sucked onto it. Was this really a case of a malicious spirit meeting an evil spirit? Chu Feng was fairly astonished. The 9th Netherworld Spirit dared to attack a reincarnation hunter? It was too daring. "I'll suck and drink your blood dry, ha-ha." The 9th Netherworld Spirit's aged voice came from the stone coffin, filled with conceit and delight. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. The 9th Netherworld Spirit was too savage. It actually dared to do this and crazily suck the blood essence of a reincarnation hunter. It was incomparably valiant. "What the hell are you? How come there's no blood?" Very soon, the ninth netherworld spirit shouted anxiously. It felt that the situation wasn't right. It couldn't suck a single drop of blood at all. Chu Feng was anxious for it and also felt a chill. Reincarnation hunters were almost as rotten as the soldiers on the reincarnation path. They were all skin and bones, so how could there be any blood left? But even so, this wasn't the reason why it was spared. It was naturally because of its special constitution and its own extraordinary nature. Wait, why can't I even absorb soul power? The ninth netherworld spirit said with a trembling voice. It already had a premonition that it had kicked an iron plate. A cry rang out from the reincarnation hunter standing on the coffin. The cry was too terrifying and incomparably miserable. The ninth netherworld spirit growled, as if it was in great pain. You're quite daring to attack a reincarnation hunter. The hunter with a human head and a lizard body stood on the coffin. His voice was also very aged and cold. What? Reincarnation hunters look like you? The ninth nether shouted. It was obvious that this was the first time he had seen them. There was clearly something wrong with its voice. It was trembling, and there was a strong sense of unease. What exactly was it doing? He actually wanted to suck the blood of a reincarnation hunter. Chu Feng had never imagined that a ninth hell that was renowned for its ferocity, ruthlessness would actually be afraid, and it was rather surprising to him that it carried fear. Tell me everything you've done in your life. The 2-foot-long, three-eyed eagle-beak black fox said. It stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the sarcophagus. Don't hunters only target living beings who don't follow the rules of reincarnation and come out with memories? Those are all creatures with astonishing origins. They have nothing to do with me. I didn't try to force my way through samsara. The 9 netherworld deity couldn't even speak fluently. It was rare for it to be frightened, and it wasn't used to all sorts of things. Speak your various sins. The reincarnation hunter with a human head and a lizard body stood on the sarcophagus. It lowered its head and looked down as if it wanted to see through the sarcophagus. The 9th nether refused to admit its sins, but it let out another cry. It seemed to be scared and said in a trembling voice, "Let's talk. I'll tell you everything I know." Chu Feng watched from afar. Even though he knew that the 2 hunters had discovered him, he wasn't worried and only watched with great interest. When I was 3 years old, I beat up my senior brother. When I was 4 years old, I peeked at my senior sister bathing. When I was 5 years old, I snuck up on my senior sister. In the distance, Chu Feng was speechless. What kind of old things were these? How could it remember them so clearly? Was it still a 9th nether hunter? It was definitely deliberately diverting the attention. After I became famous, I beat up my senior uncle 3 times and stole a gourd of true dragon bone medicinal wine from my master. After drinking it, I fed him a gourd of black chicken bone blood wine. After my sworn brother married the 3rd most beautiful woman in the Yang realm, I tried to steal the 1st most beautiful woman in the Yang realm. But I didn't succeed. Instead, I was beaten up. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. How many unreliable things had this scoundrel done? It was really shameless and even revealed it. At the same time, he was also speechless. This guy had been talking for an hour and hadn't finished yet. It had only talked from childhood to middle age. Chu Feng simply sat on a rock and listened. He saw more and more of its crimes and evil deeds. Shut up. You've done too many evil deeds. Do you want to talk for a day and a night? Even the reincarnation hunter couldn't stand it anymore and began to berate it. Even though it wasn't a heinous crime, it had done all kinds of shameful things since it was a child. There were big and small crimes that it had committed, and it was endless. If it continued like this, it wouldn't be finished even if it talked for several days and nights. You haven't said the biggest evil deed yet? The reincarnation hunter with a human head and a lizard body shouted. The 9 nether spirit hesitated for a while and said, I chopped down the heavenly profound ancient tree to make a coffin for myself. I hoped to revive and live for a few more eras. What? You bastard, you chopped down the fourth most precious tree in the Yang realm. This is a case without a clue. It's actually you, obviously, the reincarnation hunter, who was mechanically old-fashioned and had a withered soul, was furious. He was incomparably shocked and wanted to skin him alive. The 9 nether spirits shouted, "Emissary, listen to my explanation. Even though I chopped down the heavenly profound ancient tree, I didn't make it into a coffin. It was stolen by someone and fell into the hands of a Taoist priest who was 100 times more shameless than me. I wanted to chop him into pieces, so I had to find another heavenly golden stone to make a coffin. The effect was dozens of times worse." The hunter angrily rebuked, "That's not the point. I don't care whose hands your coffin fell into. I hate you for destroying the heavenly profound ancient tree. You're a sinner through the ages. Do you know how important it is? It will affect the Yang realm." Jia knew, this isn't something we should care about. After becoming a reincarnation hunter, our identities are no longer the same. We've severed our ties with the past. Now we only have one mission, and that is to hunt down the reincarnation challengers. The hunter's voice was hoarse and no longer mechanical. Some kind of consciousness was recovering. The 9 nether spirits said, "You too, I swear that I didn't kill the fourth most precious heavenly profound ancient tree. Moreover, I can't kill the primal chaos root that has existed since ancient times. I hid it somewhere." Chu Feng, who was nearby, heard everything clearly and became spirited. This bastard actually hid the fourth most precious tree in the Yang realm? It was really unexpected. "Speak, what other evil deeds have you done?" The reincarnation hunter shouted. "I even tore off half a branch of the ancient tree of 7 treasures, the 5th chaotic root in the world. However, I gave it to an old friend of the exiled immortal clan as a gift because he said he wanted to comprehend the wonderful 7 treasures technique." The hunter shouted, Why do you always attack the Yang realm's supreme tree? Do you know what you're doing? You don't understand." The other hunter was very cold and said, "All right, stop talking nonsense. Your biggest sin is to force your way into the reincarnation. Tell us your real identity." "I'm a 9 nether spirit. How did I force my way into the reincarnation? Can the 9 nether spirit remember the past? I'm very special and different from the masses. I sealed myself in an ancient coffin, and only then did I retain a portion of my memories. If the heavenly profound ancient tree's coffin hadn't been stolen, my nirvana would have reached a higher level. My heart aches, I'm so angry." "Stop talking nonsense. You're the Almighty who lives in the desolate border cosmos, right? You've always been plotting to enter the Yang realm." Chapter 1068. Chu Feng was flabbergasted and dumbfounded. This grandson hiding in the sarcophagus was an almighty? He had been playing dumb and pretending to be the most sinister and vicious 9 nether demon? He didn't feel good and felt too surprised. No matter what, he didn't expect that the powerhouse living in seclusion in the desolate border would be by his side. However, Chu Feng pondered for a while and felt that it wasn't possible. Before this, he had personally experienced the terrifying dream of the powerhouse who had already reached the end of his decline and was about to die. If not for the protection of the stone jar, his bones would have been rotten into slag. Not to mention him, even Ji Kai-Xian and Li Jiuxiao, the 2 heaven-bestowing divine kings in the Yang realm, almost died miserably. They circled the gates of hell and relied on the treasures bestowed by their ancestors to escape. I'm wrongly accused. How could I be him? I most likely had this kind of strength in my previous life, but what level of evolution am I at now? I'm far from it. The 9 nether demons shouted and the sarcophagus shook as it protested agitatedly. Moreover, if I was a powerhouse, I wouldn't be afraid of the 2 of you getting angry. Why would I swallow my anger like this? According to my hot temper, I would have made a move long ago." "You're saying that you want to make a move against us?" The hunter with a human head and a gecko body stood on the sarcophagus and looked down. A glaring beam of light appeared in its hollow eyes and thunder exploded in the void. The Nine Nether Demon tried to salvage the situation and said, "The two envoys have misunderstood. What I mean is that, if I was a powerhouse, I would have killed that little bastard at the foot of the mountain long ago." Chu Feng was originally happily listening to him defend himself, but now his expression wasn't so good. The monster in the sarcophagus was indeed not a good person. Almost at the same time, the Nine Nether Demon and Chu Feng fought to open their mouths and slander each other. "Let me tell the two of you, the little bastard at the foot of the mountain is the most suspicious. He's still young, but he already has sores on his head and pus on the soles of his feet. He's rotten from head to toe. The two envoys, the grandson in the sarcophagus, is definitely a reincarnator. We have to interrogate him properly. The prehistoric evolver was resurrected in the sarcophagus and his memories are all there. If he isn't a reincarnator, then who is? This is too heaven-defying and has realized a reincarnation in the sarcophagus." All of them shouted at the same time to trip each other up and kill each other with a borrowed knife. The Nine Nether Spirit retorted, "Little bastard, you want to kill me? You must be feeling guilty. After I died thousands of years ago, I turned into the 9 netherworlds and revived with my memories. It is only because this stone coffin has the imprint of my past life, recording everything. If you don't believe me, you can open the coffin and verify it." Chu Feng sneered and said, "I'm a genius. There are quite a number of freaks in the Yang realm who have such a performance. It's very normal. But you're the only one who reincarnated in the stone coffin, so there's definitely a problem. At the same time, you had people open the coffin because you wanted to escape, right? You were obviously harboring evil intentions and plotting something big. I suggest that we throw this coffin into the danger zone and destroy it on the spot." "All of you shut up," shouted a reincarnation hunter. The other hunter was incomparably cold. "A few years ago, there was a great disturbance in the desolate border. Someone mistakenly entered the dream of a dying great being, and at the same time, the reincarnation I captured it. At that moment, the great earth split open and a stone coffin appeared. It was clearly not someone who was about to die, but rather a cicada shedding its carapace." Chu Feng was moved. He sat on the rock and rubbed his temples, feeling a headache. Even he was a bit shaken. Could it be that the 9 Nether Spirit really was that great being? The 9 Nether Spirit cried out, I've been wrongly accused. I won't take the blame for this. That grandson framed me, so he must have already deduced and predicted today's scene." Then it added, "That is a great being, especially in his later years. He can pry into the mysteries of heaven and predict his own fortune and misfortune. This is disturbing the great Tao and hiding the truth. He wants to treat me with suffering." At this time, the three-eyed eagle-beak black fox suddenly sighed and said, "Once we become reincarnation slaves, we forget the worries of our past lives. You and I shouldn't revive the thoughts of our past lives, or else we will instantly turn into dust. Everything should be done according to the rules." "Yes, I've thought too much." That human-headed lizard body hunter spoke. His eyes were empty, no longer having luster. Those who don't fall after hearing the cry aren't those who have made it through reincarnation. A terrifying cry immediately erupted in this place. Chu Feng's soul light darkened, but he held on and didn't fall. The stone coffin trembled. The 9 Nether Spirit cried out, "I really am not that great being. I'll prove it to you guys." The coffin suddenly stood upright and jumped about here like a walking zombie. "Go, let's capture that expert who truly reincarnated with memories." Right at this time, an aged and apathetic voice sounded from the void. More than 10 creatures descended from the heavens. They were all grotesquely shaped and belonged to different races, but they also had similarities. They were all skin and bones, as if they were dried corpses. They were all reincarnation hunters. Together with the 2 on the ground, there were a total of 13 of them. The creature in the lead had a head of white hair and was extremely shriveled up. It was a humanoid creature with a pair of withered golden wings on its back. It led the group of hunters away. It was too fast, crossing through the void. A group of hunters entered the desolate border? Chu Feng's heart was heavy. But soon after, his attention shifted to the 9 nether spirit. This grandson wanted to harm him again. Of course, he automatically ignored the fact that he himself had previously slandered the 9 nether spirit. 9 nether spirit, to be more precise, it should be a great being who has lost all of his abilities, right? Chu Feng shouted. A rebuttal immediately sounded from the stone coffin. What nonsense are you spouting? I am the 9 nether spirit, don't frame me. Hearing the cry and being unharmed is enough to prove everything. You should have anticipated today's events, so you've long since made preparations. Chu Feng probed it. I can't be bothered to speak too much with you. If this old man was a great being right now, I would slap a little brat like you to death with a single slap. That's because you're in a weak state. What are you blindly probing for? The timing doesn't match up at all. I feel it beneath me to speak too much with you. Old bastard, you dare harm me today? Pay up! Chu Feng shouted. Then, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The stone coffin rolled back and forth, accompanied by curses and berating sounds. Chu Feng interrogated it about the location of the world's 4th precious tree. He clearly heard that this 9 nether spirit had actually hidden the roots of the profound sky tree. After so many years had passed, it should have long recovered and grown into a supreme precious tree. Do you dare enter after being thrown into the world of the living's 4th danger zone? The 9 nether spirit mocked. Chu Feng said, Today, I saw my own weakness and want to quickly become stronger. I really want to investigate the secrets of the reincarnation hunters and the people behind them. Second brother, are you willing to reach the peak of the realm of evolution with me? Explore the world and realize the ultimate evolution? You're so mushy after a single disagreement. This old man is ashamed to be associated with you. The 9 nether spirits spoke in disdain. Chu Feng intimidated it and said, I'm giving you face, so don't not accept it. Be careful, or else I'll really throw you back into Een Manor. All right, from today onwards, we'll travel the world together with our swords, said the 9 nether spirit. That day, in the depths of the desolate border, a world-shaking energy fluctuation erupted in the Black Domain forest. It shook violently several times, and resplendent radiance illuminated Yu Province's sky. Someone saw a group of reincarnation hunters taking action there. But very soon, everything in that area became quiet again. However, an extremely astonishing thing happened in Harmony Province. Bloody light surged and covered the boundless territory. That ancient existence that had revived released a roar that made even the hearts of heavenly deities go cold. The experts spying in secret couldn't help but cry out loudly, their eyes dripping with blood. Oh no, there's actually no one in the desolate border who forcefully charged into the cycle of reincarnation. Someone is just luring the tiger away from the mountain and sending away the hunters. Is this helping that person in Harmony Province succeed? That person in Harmony Province controlled 1/30th of the world of the living. Could it be that he's charging through reincarnation after reviving this time? Impossible. What's impossible? This person's soul light should have been imprisoned on the path of reincarnation. This time, he slaughtered his way out. Everyone's estimations before were wrong. That day, shocking news erupted in Harmony Province's vicinity. It was unknown just how many experts in the world began to pay attention to it. Everyone began to discuss spiritedly. Heavenly deities came out of seclusion and personally arrived outside Harmony Province. There were also great powers that revived and looked coldly at the distant mountains and rivers. Someone is courting death, actually daring to use Harmony Province's person as a shield to draw the attention of the outside world. He really doesn't know the difference between life and death. What is he charging through reincarnation? This is completely a serious case. He has always been living in the world of the living in Harmony Province, okay? This time, there were great powers that personally spoke, shaking the world and revealing some truth. Harmony Province's ancient existence hadn't been destroyed back then and had always been alive, hiding under the famous mountains. This time, someone misled all sides and used him to draw attention. Truly quite daring, deceiving reincarnation hunters to go to the desolate border, and then using Harmony Province's person as a shield. Today, someone is courting death, doing something that cannot see the light of day. That day, a few provinces in the world of the living were in turmoil. Many shocking news spread. Some ancient families are quite formidable, actually having a way to contact reincarnation hunters. Stirring up trouble like this, what exactly are they trying to hide? That day, even the ancestors of a few great evolutionary sects came out of seclusion. Meanwhile, there were some heavenly deities who didn't understand. Their expressions were incomparably grave, always feeling like this day was extremely strange. Someone seemed to be doing something great. Deceiving reincarnation hunters and sending them away. What exactly is it that is worth taking this kind of risk, doing this randomly? Hong. In the end, the plan was revealed. En Province in the Great Wasteland exploded, half of the province destroyed in a single day. Blood flowed like rivers, countless creatures died. Gray mist overflowed into the heavens, covering the sun, moon, and stars. This was an unprecedentedly bitter great event. It shook up the boundless world of the living. No one expected that En Province would explode like a dam bursting, triggering great chaos and panic. Chapter 1069. En Province was in a great calamity. The people were plunged into misery and suffering. The Yang realm was greatly shaken, drawing the attention of the world as it engulfed the great wastelands. Half of En Province's territory was destroyed. Evil winds howled angrily in the following days, ghosts wept and deities wept. At first, gray mist overflowed into the heavens, and then darkness enveloped the great earth. No scenery could be seen anymore. This was a shocking change. There were deities who went to investigate, entering deep into En Province, but in the end they never returned. There were divine kings who set off for En Province. Those who saw him off watched him enter the darkness, and in the end, they heard his miserable cries. Then, there was no more movement. Half-step heavenly deities moved out, descending into En Province and spreading a piece of news. That place was an endless abyss. Cries and howls rang out incessantly, and then there was no more news. Those people also disappeared within. This triggered panic in the world. Then, there was news that heavenly deities entered, but in the end, their bodies were pitch black and blood flowed from their 7 apertures. They suffered an indescribably strange attack. Seal off En Province. All domain heavenly masters take action together. That day, the powerhouse who had slept for endless years emerged. His stooped body personally walked out from the famous mountains and great rivers. He commanded the heavenly masters and invited his old friends to come out and seal En Province together. Such a great event actually happened. No one expected it. It was sudden and indescribable. In the end, En Province was sealed off, and no one could enter again. No one knew why it suddenly exploded. The powerhouse appeared and sealed off En Province. It became more and more confusing, and it was also extremely terrifying. This type of great disaster hadn't been seen for many years. People couldn't help but think of the Black Blood calamity. Back then, there were also great provinces that turned into dangerous lands, becoming a land of disaster. However, that was something from an extremely ancient era. Apart from the heavenly deities and evolved beings who had lived for a long time, no one had experienced it before. It's actually Een province. How ruthless! The land within millions and millions of li has sunk, becoming a land of death. From then on, not a blade of grass will grow, rotten blood will evaporate. They actually did such a destructive thing. That day, someone stood outside Een province, gazing into the darkness. His voice was cold and filled with anger. His eyes turned into golden symbols. 2 beams of light flew out, illuminating the terrifying darkness and revealing some truths. At the center of the entire Een province, an enormous abyss appeared. It was pitch black and immeasurably deep. The mist was thick, forming all types of malicious spirits and demons. They howled in grief as they struggled out. The 21st danger zone in the Yang realm has officially taken shape. From now on, it will stand tall and erect, turning into vile soil that can no longer be entered. There was another person standing in the other direction. It was a woman with hair as white as snow. Although her face was rosy, the vicissitudes in the depths of her eyes betrayed her age. Behind her was an illustrious and famous Emperor, Tai Wu. He was standing in the back, carrying out the etiquette of a disciple. One could imagine how high this woman's status was. No wonder it's called Een Prefecture. The rumors are true, said the woman indifferently. Finally, she turned and left. Ordinary people didn't know what Een Province's changes meant at all. Only heavenly venerables that had lived for an extremely long time, families with shocking inheritances, and others could sense it and understand it clearly. Tai Wu raised his head. Even with his cultivation level, he could only vaguely hear the last words of the woman. The legend is about to become reality. The deduction has a basis. What do you mean? Tai Wu frowned. Soon, Een Province became a barren land that represented death and terror. No one was willing to approach it. At the same time, the storm finally calmed down. No matter how shocking the cataclysm was, it was impossible for it to continue being discussed. After half a year, it was no longer a hot topic. Of course, people would occasionally mention it, and it would still lead to discussions. Unfortunately, no one could find the truth, none of them able to understand the deeper nature. Human King left the mountains, enlightening the world. After hundreds and thousands of years, this will become a story of praise. 10,000 years later, even my followers will call themselves ancestors. Half a year had passed. Chu Feng prepared to leave the mountains, leave desolate border. Not far out, the 9 netherworlds deity in the stone coffin curled its lips. It really wanted to say that this little bastard was finally going to leave the mountains to bring disaster everywhere. Old 9, are you curling your lips in disdain? Chu Feng shouted. The 9 netherworlds deity was shocked. How did you know? Forget it, I won't bicker with you. After all, you and that donkey were both my earliest followers. In the future, I'll grant you two the title of servants, the Empyrean level. The 9 netherworlds deity retorted, saying, Little bastard, the more you speak, the more ridiculous you are. Am I your servant? I am your sworn brother. Also, what are you trying to say? Are you going to find a donkey to stand side by side with me? In front of the stone coffin, there was a tall and divine steed, even more robust than an ordinary horse king. This was a wild donkey spirit that Chu Feng had subdued from the depths of the mountain range. Now it was being used to pull a carriage. The carriage used the stone coffin as the foundation, and a lot of good wood was used to make the carriage body. You are humiliating me. A donkey pulling a carriage, and my stone coffin has become a part of the carriage? You are going too far. Be careful or I'll suck your blood essence dry. The 9 netherworlds deity cried out indignantly. However, he was only shouting. Currently, he could no longer threaten Chu Feng. During this half a year, Chu Feng repeatedly researched, using domain methods to seal the stone coffin. In the end, he really succeeded, and all of this was because he had inadvertently used a type of material that was a pile of soil in a stone jar from the ultimate zone of reincarnation. At that time, not only did Chu Feng seize all kinds of fortunes, such as the 33-year-old heavenly grass, the Sun Dragon River, and the 6 paths of reincarnation blood, but he also dug up the soil and took away a pile of it. Now, he discovered that he could use this kind of soil to seal the sky gold stone coffin and make the 9 netherworlds deity behave himself. Where did you find this soil? It's too evil. Why does it make me feel cold all over and my soul palpitate? How vile! The 9 netherworlds deity was incomparably apprehensive. This kind of soil could actually seal the sky gold stone coffin. It was too shocking. Chu Feng put his hands behind his back and said, "Back in the days of prehistoric times, during the heaven burial era, this old man entered reincarnation alone and fought a bloody battle against the mastermind behind the scenes. I broke the reincarnation cave and obtained 6 types of ultimate soil. I mixed it into a millstone and suppressed it on the path of reincarnation, wiping away the memories of my previous life and ensuring that all living beings of various races could reincarnate smoothly. Now I control heaven and earth. I reached into reincarnation and cut off a corner of the millstone, grinding it into soil to seal the demons and ghosts of the Yang realm. Second brother, my servant, you should rejoice that you're the first. Follow me sincerely and I'll grant you a supreme Tao fruit in the future." The 9 netherworlds deity's teeth hurt. He felt that this grandson was full of nonsense and couldn't listen to his nonsense. He could only ponder over it selectively. He had a premonition that this soil was too terrifying and special. Chu Feng said again, "Donkey, I think of an old friend when I see you. Perform well and I won't treat you unfairly in the future. Pull the cart and go, go." He thought of the old donkey, Lu Feiyang. He didn't know if he could reincarnate successfully and if he could survive. Would they meet again? Yes, Master Zilialo. This donkey imitated a horse's cry and shook its head and tail. Its navy blue fur was very shiny like silk and satin. It really didn't look like a donkey at all. Chu Feng reprimanded, "Donkey, you have to be more confident. You have to know that under the donkey cart you're pulling, there's a former almighty in this stone coffin. Why don't you have the slightest bit of ambition and imitate a horse's cry?" "All right, I understand." The donkey spirit nodded solemnly before raising his head and crying, "Chirp, chirp, chirp, shut up, are you an old sparrow? Why are you imitating a sparrow's cry for no reason?" Chu Feng was exasperated at the donkey's failure to meet his expectations. The donkey spirit said, "I'm imitating the first cry of the phoenix. Legend has it that the immortal bird cries." "Up to you." Chu Feng couldn't be bothered with it. "Yes, master, chirp, chirp, chirp." The 9 netherworlds deity said faintly from behind, "Let me eat this donkey. I can't afford to lose this face. Stop talking nonsense and hurry back to the tribe to bid farewell. Go." Chu Feng said. He sat in the donkey cart and patted the coffin under his butt. "Old 9, you said that your family's wealth has been buried for thousands of years. Is it still there?" The 9 netherworlds deity said indignantly, "Stop. First, I'm not called Old 9. Second, what does my family's wealth have to do with you? Third, I can't take it anymore. What do you mean by sitting on my coffin? I don't want to be your donkey cart. Aren't you the 9 netherworlds deity? If you don't like to be called second brother, then I'll call you Old 9. We are sworn brothers. Isn't your family's wealth mine? Can't I ask in advance? What are we doing in the Tianxia map? Isn't it to dig up your old nest and old treasures? Also, becoming the carriage of the human king will be a good story in the future. I'll grant you the throne. F***ck your grandfather's throne." The 9 netherworlds deity couldn't take it anymore. Outside the Ji tribe, Ji Hu, Fatty Dumpling, and the others' eyes were slightly red. They were on the verge of tears. How could they not have feelings for each other after living together for so many years? Ji Haishan and some of the tribe elders sighed. They were very against Chu Feng going far away, but they couldn't stop him. Why are you crying? It's not like I'm not coming back. Fatty Dumpling, Ji Hu, you guys are going to get married and have children in 2 years. Why are you still crying? You're so useless. Who's crying? I'm just thinking that you're going far away and won't be able to drink Meng Po's soup or eat fresh roasted fire dragons. Chu Feng smiled and said, It's not good to eat too much of those things. Meng Po's soup makes people forgetful. Fire dragon meat is too nutritious. You guys don't have weak kidneys. If you eat too much before you get married, your body will become inflamed. Chu Feng smiled cheekily, trying to lighten the sadness of their parting. He had once shared his Meng Po's soup with the people he knew in the village. He had also used the stone coffin as a seal to kill a fire dragon. He brought it back and ate it. These were all things that could not be seen in the tribe. Godfather, I'm leaving. Before Chu Feng left, he passed a bag of pills the size of a human head to Ji Haishan. In the past few years, almost everyone in the village had a big pill. For some reason, Yingying's 9th grandfather didn't appear in the past few years. He didn't ask him to make pills for him. At the same time, Dong Qing and that lady didn't return either. This was also the reason why Chu Feng decided to leave. He needed to find his own opportunities and quickly become stronger. He had to take a look at all the places that Empyrean Stone who had mentioned. Just like that, Chu Feng left. He sat on the donkey cart and began his journey to the ends of the world. Hiya! Jiu, this old man once ruled over 6 provinces. Jidade, don't you feel like you're sitting on pins and needles when you transform my coffin into a donkey cart and sit on it? Chapter 1070. I have a little donkey, but I never ride it. One day, I was carried away by a whim. On the bumpy mountain road, Chu Feng was humming a little tune in a good mood. From now on, he had officially set foot on the vast land of the Yang realm. He was looking forward to the magnificent picture scroll. Master, please give me a way out. While Chu Feng was humming, the handsome donkey couldn't stand him anymore. He pulled the donkey cart and ran away while begging for mercy. Are you embarrassed when the donkey is mentioned in the song? Chu Feng laughed. No, please don't poison my ears anymore, the donkey mumbled. Donkey, you're disdaining my heavenly voice. You don't have the slightest bit of the tranquil mood of a red cart. Moreover, you lack a rare noble sentiment. You're simply a common donkey. Hearing Chu Feng's shameless nonsense, the 9 nether deity couldn't stand him anymore and said, Jidade, I beg you to accumulate virtue and stop singing. This old man feels ashamed even when traveling with you. If we were to accidentally meet an old friend from back then, where would I put my old face? Along the way, Chu Feng had used the teleportation domain several times. However, he also spent a lot of time driving like this because he wanted to experience the local customs. Half a month had passed and he still hadn't left Yu province. This was the result of crossing the void continuously. Normally speaking, if they didn't step into the teleportation domain, ordinary evolvers wouldn't be able to leave a province even if they drove for their entire lives. This went to show just how vast the Yang realm was. I'm about to leave the desolate border. I haven't experienced it in detail before. I'll experience the tribal culture along the way. Chu Feng sighed. Suddenly, he saw smoke rising into the sky in front of him. There was a murderous aura filling the air. After driving up a slope, he found a tribe being massacred by a group of bandits. The scene was brutal and bloody. What a beast! They won't even let the children go. This wasn't the first time he had encountered such a thing. It wasn't easy for a tribe to survive. Not only did they have to fight against ferocious birds and beasts, but they also had to deal with man-made disasters. Donkey, what are you waiting for? Charge forward and kill them! Chu Feng shouted. Most of the people living in the desolate border were berserkers who worshipped the berserker god. Some tribes would use a large amount of human blood as a primer when they offered sacrifices. These bandits specifically raided villages to collect blood. Relatively speaking, the G clan's tribe was relatively peaceful. They had never encountered such a thing. However, in some more remote places that lacked the protection of the alliance of large tribes, this kind of tragedy was not rare. "Father!" In the village, a 14 or 15-year-old girl screamed in a shrill voice. She saw a man riding on a black panther rushing over and beheading her father with a single slash of his saber, sending her father's head flying into the air, causing a large amount of blood to blossom. Then, a spatial gourd on the black leopard's body shone and absorbed the blood. Meanwhile, this was only the tip of the village's tragedy. There were some old and gray-haired elders who were also decapitated. Their heads tumbled down, the scene extremely miserable. The battle cries of this small tribe shook the heavens. Although the people here resisted with all their might, they were no match for this group of murderers. With a swoosh, the Black Panther Knight's snow-white longsword swept horizontally towards the young girl. "Sister!" A young child cried out in fear. Clang! The donkey spirit pulled the cart and pounced forward crazily. With a kick of his hoof, he sent the longsword flying, causing sparks to fly in all directions. "Who are you? How dare you meddle in our affairs?" "Old Nine, Ram!" Chu Feng let the Nine Nether Spirit make a move. The donkey spirit pulled the cart and rampaged about, instantly arousing the anger of some mounted gangsters. Many people rushed over with blood-stained weapons. Dong! Bang! The donkey cart, which used the stone coffin as its foundation, simply had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. It collided and swept about here. The strength of this group of mounted gangsters was really not weak. Some of them had reached the Golden Body Realm, but they were all very miserable. All of their bones were broken and their muscles were torn. If it wasn't for Chu Feng sealing the stone coffin with the special soil of the ultimate land of reincarnation, these people would have their blood sucked dry. Even so, they still suffered heavy losses. Not long after, 80% of the nearly 100 mounted gangsters were wiped out. "Run, there's something strange about this cart. The wind is tight, run. F***CK, this is a spirit car." When Chu Feng heard their angry cries, he couldn't help but be stunned. His ride was really a spirit car. He was speechless for a while. This was a typical spirit car drifting, crashing in all directions. Chase after them. Get rid of evil for the people. Chu Feng chased and killed all the way. There were constantly spirit cars drifting, blocking this group of villains. He sighed and didn't return to that small tribe. He could only help here. And this was a small episode on the road. Chu Feng continued on his way. However, his speed was still not very fast, and he was not in a hurry to go far. He was thinking about something and said, "Second brother, I used special soil to seal the stone coffin, but if we meet a fierce person, if I can't release you in time and use you as a heaven-flipping seal, wouldn't I be crippling my own martial arts? Do you have any solution?" The Nine Nether Spirit only heard this and was angry. It was sealed, and it didn't absorb a drop of blood after crashing about randomly just now. It was used as a heaven-flipping seal, and it was asked to follow and think of a solution. It was really outrageous. "Second brother, are you asleep? Why aren't you talking?" "I don't want to talk to you," Chu Feng said. "Yes, I'll think of a way myself. Maybe I can use the reincarnation earth to refine a suit of armor. I'll wear it and free the stone coffin." The Nine Nether Spirit immediately changed its tune. "Good idea. How wonderful!" It was full of flattery. However, reality was helpless. Chu Feng had tried all kinds of flames, but it was useless. They couldn't melt the reincarnation earth. There was simply no solution. The Nine Nether Spirits suggested, "Let's go to the Yang River. There's a special flame in that river apart from the Yang spring. Maybe it can melt this kind of earth. The Yang realm originated from a stone mountain and flowed through several provinces. It was filled with overflowing Yang energy. Additionally, the Yang spring would occasionally appear in the river, which made the evolvers of all races envious. The so-called Yang spring was also Granny Meng's soup. Next, Chu Feng began to lay down the transportation domain. He no longer admired the local customs along the way because he had more or less understood what he needed to understand. He left the universe and entered the Dongxing divine continent. Moreover, he arrived at a river bank with rolling hot air and glaring light. The Yang River had Granny Meng's soup and was guarded by evolvers all year round. However, this river was simply too long and spanned several provinces. No family could seal off the entire river. Chu Feng chose a quiet place and gazed at the river from afar. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This was a great river with glowing water. It was blooming with dense light and surging Yang energy. It whistled and surged as if it was rushing into the sky. That kind of grandeur was too spectacular. Half a month later, Chu Feng saw a ball of hazy flame beside the river. It was glowing brightly, and he was shaken. He almost mistook it for the reincarnation fire from the purgatory. There's Granny Meng's soup and fire in the water. There's also dense Yang energy. How strange. Chu Feng sighed. He quickly made preparations and didn't let this opportunity slip by. He began to burn special soil with the help of this special flame. In the end, Chu Feng took out the dragon scale armor he had obtained from the dragon's nest and prepared to fuse it with the reincarnation earth. This way, it would have a sturdy defensive effect and could also defend against the threat of the 9 underworld. The flames flickered, and in the end, Chu Feng really succeeded. Some of the holes on the tattered dragon scale armor were filled up with earth. The reincarnation earth was melted and refined. It was like porcelain, but it also looked like a sparkling and translucent metal sheet. When it was finally completed, it looked rather extraordinary. Chu Feng made all kinds of calculations. The dragon scale armor had become extraordinary after being covered with that special layer of sparkling substance. He made strict deductions and made serious calculations. Wearing this armor, even if many parts of his body were exposed, he could still defend against the 9 underworlds in the stone coffin. Right now, its most terrifying move was sucking blood and absorbing people's soul light. It was difficult to use other secret techniques with the coffin in between. After it wore the armor, it experienced it seriously. The effects were pretty good. During this period, the 9 underworlds tried to mount a sneak attack, but it was useless. This made it resentful and disappointed. Chu Feng studied the map and carefully found the Azure Prefecture on a beast-skin scroll. That was the prefecture where the extreme martial deity resided. His location and inheritance were all there. The ruins of the damning Pure Land are also in the Azure Prefecture. On that day, Chu Feng constructed a large-scale teleportation domain. Even though he was separated by several prefectures, he rushed over immediately and entered the Azure Prefecture. He wanted to take a look. Old 9, do you know of the damning Pure Land evolutionary sect? Chu Feng stood on a tall mountain in the Azure Prefecture and surveyed the distance. There was a very large city between the mountains and rivers in front of him. It was extremely flourishing and filled with the aura of the mortal world. This was the first time he had seen such a flourishing city after coming to the Yang realm. The 9 underworlds said, "How can I not know? The damning Pure Land was once ranked among the top 10 orthodoxies in prehistoric times. They were extremely flourishing." Chu Feng sighed after hearing this. No matter how great an inheritance is, there will come a day when it will reach its end. The damning Pure Land has been destroyed for who knows how many years. People have almost forgotten about it. Then, he waved his hand and decided to rush to the ruins of the damning Pure Land. Old 9, lead the way. Even though he was in the Azure Prefecture, he still had to use the teleportation domain. The main reason was that this prefecture was too big. 2 days later, Chu Feng arrived at a barren land in the Azure Prefecture. Not even a blade of grass grew there. It didn't look like a habitable place at first glance. This was an important place that Chu Feng had been thinking about after he left the desolate border and pondered over it seriously. Damning Pure Land, I'm here. Looking at this barren and lifeless land that had been completely trampled flat, even the 9 underworlds sank into silence. This was one of the most powerful evolutionary sects of its era. During its most resplendent and glorious period, it could almost command the world. Chu Feng came here to try and see if he could find the complete chapter of the damning breathing technique. He wanted to search for it and test his luck to see if he could discover the reason why this orthodoxy could produce true dragon elixir in the past. Chapter 1071. The so-called Pure Land was now just a land of death. Birds could not be seen, insects could not be seen, and plants could not be found. The entire ruins were filled with a deathly aura. In the past, there were still people who came here to pay their respects, to reminisce about the past, and to search for opportunities. But after a long period of time, people from all walks of life came back empty-handed. How lamentable, how pitiful! Chu Feng sighed. He sat on a weathered rock and surveyed the ancient land from a distance. He could see that this area had once condensed heavenly flowers and earthly treasures. It had absorbed the ancestral qi of the earth veins and lived in seclusion. Every inch of soil had once flowed with great Tao fragments, and the essence energy had even more evaporated over the years. It lingered around this place, and was truly an immortal abode of heaven. But it was destroyed just like that. Humans killed until rivers of blood flowed and corpses piled up like mountains. There were no longer any signs of life within 1,000,000 miles. All living things were dead. It was really hard to imagine how powerful Damning Pure Land's main enemy was. After all, this place was one of the top 10 evolutionary sects in the Yang realm back then. Things remain the same, but people have changed. The blue sea has turned into mulberry fields. The 9 Nether sighed with incomparable disappointment and frustration. Thinking back to the past, Damning Pure Land's name shook the Yang realm. Even in prehistoric times, it was respected by the world. At that time, it wasn't called Damning Pure Land, but Ancient Dream Path. How did they get destroyed? They developed rapidly and wanted to seize another race's ultimate breathing technique, but they were destroyed instead? That's not quite possible. It doesn't fit with the style of this sect. Treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Did they have a secret manual for brewing true dragon elixir that attracted covetous eyes? This reason is also very far-fetched. The 9 Nether shook its head. It had personally experienced that era and had some understanding of this powerful evolutionary sect. It didn't agree with the theories that were spread in later generations. Chu Feng was very quiet as he looked at this wasteland. Not even the so-called broken walls and rubble were left behind. Everything had been emptied. Back then, Ancient Dream Path was too powerful and looked down on the Yang realm. After it was unexpectedly destroyed, all parties flocked over in order to find the sect's scriptures and ancient techniques. They didn't even let go of a single tile. Everyone's hearts were filled with hope. What if the rubble was like a ring that could hold a mountain? There were also some who suspected that the clan's scriptures were engraved within the mountain stone artifacts. Therefore, not to mention the jade palaces, copper palaces, and gold pavilions, even the majestic mountains were uprooted and placed in the territory of the various powerful clans. Chu Feng sat there and looked at the wasteland. At the same time, he couldn't help but think of those people in the small underworld. There was also a Damning Pure Land there, but it had been completely wiped out by someone. Not even the fowls and dogs were spared. Apart from a few people who escaped to a small planet, all the disciples and followers were either dead or wounded. Even Qin Luoyin died in that battle. She was ambushed and corroded by the golden substance. In the end, she perished, leaving behind only sorrow and regret. Chu Feng was quiet and lost in thought. He looked at the wasteland and thought about the people and matters of the little underworld. For a long time, he was like a clay statue or a wooden sculpture. Qin Luoyin died, and the child she left behind, the little Taoist, also reincarnated into the Yang realm. Back then, he had once gone crazy and went to the foreign realm to cultivate like a demon, drawing the gray substance into his body. In the end, Chu Feng succeeded. He killed some of the enemies and even forced his way through reincarnation to the Yang realm. He wanted to take revenge for his parents, Qin Luoyin, the Black Yak, and the others. His usual mischievous smile concealed the heaviness in his heart. The blood and tears of his old friends were still in front of him. It seemed as though they hadn't dried up yet and he couldn't forget them. Finding Tai Wu, Hunyi, and the others to take revenge was one of his main objectives in coming to the Yang realm. At the same time, he also hoped to see those old friends who had passed away again one day. Those people are like withered flowers withering in the wind, drifting away without a place to return to. Will I ever see them again? Chu Feng put away his heaviness and stopped thinking about them. He revealed his fiery eyes and explored this place to get to the bottom of it. What was the use of saying so much and showing sorrow? The road was still long and people still wanted to walk forward alive. It was better to leave everything for the future and put it into action. Chu Feng didn't conceal it at all. Golden beams of light flew out from his eyes and illuminated the entire underground. He definitely wanted to explore the depths of the underground. He hoped that there were some things left behind by the people back then. The stone coffin shook and the nine nether spirit was stunned. If it didn't sense wrongly, this was the fiery eyes? This kind of ability couldn't be activated just because you were strong. You needed special opportunities to master it. It could be considered a kind of innate skill that couldn't be controlled in advance. Oh, there's really something here? Chu Feng was in a daze. Ever since he understood enough on the road, and especially after coming here, he no longer held any hope. Not even a tile was left behind. Even the mountain range had been moved away. What could be left of the barren land? But now, Chu Feng sensed something unusual under the damning Pure Land's ruins. Let's go, second brother. Let's go down and take a look. Chu Feng removed the stone coffin from the donkey cart and submerged it into the soil layer. He went underground. The donkey spirit stayed on the surface and was in charge of keeping watch. This time, he went very deep. He didn't even know how many kilometers he had gone. The underground world was pitch black, but he didn't encounter even a brick. There was nothing at all. He pondered that even the soil here might have been snatched away by someone and that this place was filled up by sandstorms later on. That's not right. I clearly sense something abnormal underground. Why haven't I discovered anything yet? He was flabbergasted. He continued to go down and opened his fiery eyes. In the end, he finally confirmed that there was a mass of black mist in the extreme depths of the underground. There was a pitch-black soil that was extremely cold. When Chu Feng was still several kilometers away, he stopped. That kind of coldness seeped into his bones and almost froze him. What was this place? Moreover, he was certain that even without the fiery eyes, other evolvers would be able to sense it as long as they were willing to dive deep enough. Moreover, how could those top-notch experts miss this place? If there was a land of fortune, it wouldn't be left for a latecomer like him. Een Manor. The Nine Nether God gave him the answer. He had revived in another Een Manor and struggled out with great difficulty. He understood this kind of terrifying place the best. Go and investigate. Chu Feng urged him. I won't go even if you beat me to death. The Nine Nether God refused flatly. What kind of joke was this? Manor wasn't a place anyone could charge into. Even an entity like him who had awakened from there was afraid of it. It was clear how dangerous it was. "You'll go if you can't beat me to death, right?" Chu Feng asked. "What do you mean?" Chu Feng said, "What I mean is that you originally came from Manor. Help me investigate and see if this place has anything to do with damning Pure Land. Could it be that the destruction of damning Pure Land is related to Manor? Additionally, there might be fortunes below. You should look for it properly and we brothers will do something big. Otherwise, if you refuse, I'll just use the teleportation domain to directly send you in." The 9 nether god simply had a constipated expression and was full of hidden bitterness in the stone coffin. Then, he grinded his teeth. He was truly unhappy to be threatened by a child who said he would do something big. However, ever since he became a spirit carriage, he had no choice but to live under other people's eaves. "I'll lend you a hand." Chu Feng suddenly threw the stone coffin into the depths of the ground. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The stone coffin was like a javelin as it drilled into the ground at lightning speed and approached Manor in the blink of an eye. The 9 nether god naturally cried out. This little bastard's strength was too great. If he were to be thrown in, who knew how many years it would take for him to crawl out? No one understood better than him just how terrifying Manor was. A large scarlet mist of blood rose from the stone coffin as its speed rapidly slowed down. In the end, it stopped outside a black mist. Not far away, malicious spirits howled. It was a sinister and terrifying scene. This is Manor. It's no different from the one in the desolate borders gored crater. It's a land of death. The 9 nether gods shouted after he finished his investigation. In reality, Chu Feng was already hiding in the stone jar. He was worried that something might happen, so he came out after a while and went all the way down. "Old 9, you didn't even go in, so what right do you have to speak? Manor appearing under damning Pure Land is definitely not normal. Go in and take a look." The 9 nether god immediately became anxious after hearing this. "Fuck your grandpa. Black-hearted brat, it's easy for you to say that. What kind of place is this? Can you just casually enter? I'm not asking you to go in. I'm just looking for the entrance to see if there are any messages left behind by the predecessors. What if this is a lucky chance? Lucky chance my ass. Unless someone who can't be any more dead wants to come back, who would be willing to approach this place?" The 9 nether gods shouted. Hearing the malicious spirits' howls and demons' roars, it was truly a bit scared. After staying in this kind of place for a while, it definitely wouldn't want to go back. In the end, it still moved. It searched through the black mist and found the correct path. It was connected to a boundless 9 netherland. It was filled with a deathly aura and the earth was dripping with blood. The most important thing was that the area outside of Manor was very spacious. It was a cave that could accommodate many people. "It's nothing. This old man already said that how could there be a lucky chance in this kind of place? This is a land of death, a land of decay. Even if a heavenly deity stayed here for a long time, his body and spirit would disappear." At this point, the 9 nether god cried out as if a mortal had seen a ghost in broad daylight. It was incomparably mournful and fled for its life. A ball of light blossomed there. It was too dazzling and incomparably divine. It was as if an immortal country had opened and the heavens had appeared, illuminating the entire space outside of Manor. Only I know who was the first to wake up from this great dream. A machine-like voice rang out from within Manor. There was no emotion, nor were there any fluctuations of emotion. It was as if an ice-cold robot was indifferently speaking. The 9 nether gods' stone coffin flipped over and flew out as if it had suffered an unimaginable injury. A large amount of bloody mist rose from the coffin as it cried out in alarm. "Dreamland, soul land, not enough soul flesh." That machine-like voice rang out again. What was that? Chu Feng observed in secret and found it hard to believe. This was but Een Manor, so how could there be such a divine light? No matter which record it was, it had never been mentioned before. Impossible, what kind of place is this? The Nine Nether God also cried out. At this time, Chu Feng saw specks of light up on the stone coffin. It was as if they were eternal stars that illuminated the entire cosmos. Even though they were all tiny specks, they were too dazzling and glaring at this moment. Wait a moment, are you talking about soul flesh? It's actually that kind of thing? The Nine Nether Gods' mind trembled in disbelief. Soul flesh is required to activate. The machine-like voice resounded through the glaring light. Chu Feng stared at the stone coffin. In a split second, he knew what the so-called soul flesh was, and great waves surged in his heart. The thing he had inadvertently collected was actually a type of ultimate material of fortune. Chapter 1072. This thing was soul flesh? Ayo. Chu Feng wanted to shout in pain. If he had known earlier, he would have dug until he vomited. However, there seemed to be no place to put it back then. How is this possible? Brat, who exactly are you? Why do you have soul flesh on your body? With your level, you can't even come into contact with it. Even my big brother didn't obtain it back then. Not far away, the Nine Netherworld deity in the stone coffin that was struck by the resplendent light beam was roaring. It was trembling in disbelief. What kind of person was its sworn big brother? He had once controlled 1/10 of the Yang realm's territory. This was a glorious and world-shattering feat. From the prehistoric era to the present, only a few people had managed to accomplish this. Even that kind of person would feel regret when soul flesh was mentioned and never possessed it, so how could this wicked child in front of it have it? Moreover, he had shamefully squandered it before. The dark mist evaporated and the entrance to Een Manor shone resplendently. This didn't conform to common sense. How could divine radiance and energy appear in the Nine Netherworld Deathland? None of the history books had recorded such a situation. In the depths of the Een Manor, above the bleeding soil, there was a golden crack that seemed to be opening in the void. It was very strange, and all the divine radiance was blossoming from within. The granules on the stone coffin were sparkling and translucent. They were full and gorgeous, and at this moment, they all danced in the air and flew toward the golden crack in Een Manor. The golden crack was absorbing the soul flesh. Too little, unable to open. An ice-cold and mechanical voice came from Een Manor. I have it. Chu Feng rushed over with the stone jar in hand. He used the Nine Netherworld deity's stone coffin as a shield within a certain safe range. In fact, his body shone as soon as he approached. A dazzling multicolored light shone. It was too holy and pure as it purified the underground Deathland. With a tearing sound, a large amount of bloody mist rose from the stone coffin. The Nine Netherworld deities screamed miserably and fled without a trace. In fact, Chu Feng had already run away. The dragon-scale armor on his body that had been refined with reincarnation soil almost disintegrated and turned into sparkling granules that flew toward the golden crack in the Deathland. It was not until he had retreated to a safe distance that he steadied himself and shouted again, Wait a moment, the soul meat is coming. The so-called soul flesh was actually a special type of soil that Chu Feng had dug out from the ultimate land of reincarnation. Back then, he had grabbed a section of the root of the 33-layer heaven's grass and missed out on too many creation substances. He was furious. He dug 3 feet into the ground and messed around in that final land, but in the end, he didn't obtain any natural luck. He could only carry a pile of earth and continue on his way. Who would have thought that this special characteristic could restrain the 9 underworlds and seal the stone coffin? In the end, he smelted it and combined it with the dragon's scale armor to become a protective treasure. And now its true origin was revealed. It was actually the so-called soul and flesh. Although Chu Feng didn't know what it was used for and where it came from, He knew that it must have a terrifying origin and an inestimable value. Even the big brother of the 9 underworlds regretted not having it in his hands, so how could it be an ordinary item? Chu Feng grabbed a handful of the special soil and really didn't see anything unusual. He had once boasted to the 9 underworlds that he had broken the reincarnation cave and taken 6 types of ultimate soil to form a millstone to suppress the reincarnation path. It would erase the memories of the previous life and ensure that the creatures of all races could smoothly reincarnate. He had also said that the soil in his hand was obtained by cutting off a corner of the millstone and grinding it into powder. However, even he didn't believe it. It was completely boasting. But now, why did he feel that this thing might not be any weaker than what he had boasted? Its origin was shocking. With a swoosh, he scattered the soil in his hand, sending it flying towards the land of death. In the air, the soil particles shone like tiny sariras. All of them were full, translucent, and holy. Then, the golden crack in the air of Een Manor rapidly opened up and swallowed the so-called soul and flesh. It opened continuously until it finally formed a door and revealed the scenery inside. For a moment, Chu Feng was startled and didn't dare to act rashly. Not far away, the sound of saliva being swallowed came from the stone coffin. In the prehistoric era, how glorious was the ancient dream path! Who wouldn't give face? It intimidated the world of the living. Was the true inheritance of this bloodline opening now? It was an auspicious space with golden radiance circulating around the door. It was extremely divine and was filled with fragments of the great Tao that flowed out from that small world like a beautiful stream. In the small world, what entered his eyes was a stone table with an ancient scripture placed on it. Was there even a need to ask? It was definitely the highest scripture of the prehistoric ancient dream path. Ancient dust boat G-Dade, go and get the scripture. The 9 underworlds swallowed a mouthful of saliva and urged Chu Feng. Chu Feng said, "Second brother, am I the kind of person who swallows good fortune alone? I'll share the riches and honor with you, so you go and get it." The 9 underworlds was incomparably humble. "How can I steal the merit? Big brother, this scripture is yours, so I definitely can't do that kind of tasteless thing. When the time comes, you just have to teach me some scriptures." Chu Feng cursed. This grandson was too slippery. He actually resisted the temptation and didn't take the risk. He was rather afraid of death. If he really obtained the scripture, he wouldn't let him read a single word. Now, he finally understood why none of the major evolutionary sects had obtained the supreme breathing technique of the ancient dream path. This was once one of the top 10 techniques in history and was known as the ultimate technique. The main reason was that no one had discovered that there was another universe inside Een Manor. The value of the scripture could be seen just from the sound of the fellow in the stone coffin swallowing his saliva. This was a breathing technique that had suppressed both ancient and modern times. The most important thing was that the scripture on the stone table should be very complete. If he really obtained it, he could directly pave his future path. Up to this day, Chu Feng had already collected some breathing techniques, but they were all incomplete. Even the robbery induction was extremely strange and couldn't explain its ultimate secret. A complete ultimate breathing technique was placed in front of him for the first time. Not to mention celestial venerable level evolvers, even powerhouses would immediately kill their way here if they knew about the situation here. They would fight with their lives on the line and seize it regardless of the price. This was once a glorious ancient technique that had been lost for a long time. Once it appeared, it would definitely lead to a bloody war. How lamentable! The culprit back then dug 100 kilometers underground but still couldn't bring this scripture away. It's still here after so many years. The 9 Netherworld Gui was speechless after it finished speaking. Regardless of whether it was him or Chu Feng, both of them were certain that countless people had come here since ancient times, and they had definitely discovered this Een Manor land of death. However, there was absolutely no one who could see through this small world in the void. Without the special soil of the ultimate land of reincarnation, it was simply impossible to open it. "Let me take a look," the 9 netherworld Gui mumbled. A large amount of bloody mist rose from the stone coffin and pervaded the land of death. It was investigating and quickly confirmed that there were celestial venerables who had entered Een Manor. There were also powerhouses who had taken action here to search for some items under the bloody land of death. There were even people of that level who had almost died here. No one could stay in this land of death for a long time. How lamentable! The giants of various aristocratic families, and even the founding ancestors of certain sects, had come here before. There was the damaged soul protection talisman of the Sakya clan, as well as the incense and candles of the Hun clan. The 9 netherworld Gui investigated, and found some remnants. After countless eras, it was unknown how many peak evolvers had come here in succession to search for these items, but they had all failed. All those who had come here were merely passers-by, and had all returned without any achievements. Suddenly, a sweet-sounding laughter rang out. It was very pure and could make people forget their worries after listening to it. What was going on? Chu Feng was shocked. There was still someone in this golden crack in the void? A young girl appeared there. She was graceful and noble and wore a brightly colored dress. Her bright eyes flickered and her tall body swayed. She was truly a peerless beauty. That kind of style and aura was like the rebirth of a fairy from the 9 heavens. Chu Feng was petrified. His eyes were slightly sore and his entire body stiffened in place. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.